Chapter 1258. Blood Soul Valley. In the ninth heaven. Master Clairvoyant and Long Batian stood quietly on top of the clouds. Both of them had watched the battle between Longao and Blood Soul Valley from start to finish. However, neither of them had made a move. Even though Longao had been hit by Shangguan with all her might, neither of them had made a move. Master Clairvoyant, why didn't you let me make a move just now? Long Batian was curious. After all, Master Clairvoyant valued Longao very much. If that was the case, why didn't he help Longao? At this moment, Longao's fate was unknown. Master Clairvoyant smiled. Brother Long, you lied to Longao this time because you wanted to train Longao. In that case, you and I shouldn't have made a move. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made such an unnecessary move. That being said, we don't know whether Longao is dead or alive. It turned out that the air shield on the surface of the pit was released by Long Batian. In other words, the air shield on the surface of the pit was the origin energy shield. It would be difficult to break the origin energy shield with Nirvana realm strength alone. If Shangguan, Ren Tianxing, and the others knew that the energy shield they had just attacked was the origin energy shield, what would they think? Brother Long, calm down. Longao is not dead. Long Batian was overjoyed when he heard Master Clairvoyant's words. He was about to make a move, but Master Clairvoyant pulled him back. Master Clairvoyant, Longao. Without waiting for Long Batian to speak, the godly mathematician continued, Brother Long, since Longao has been chosen by you and me, then from now on, we should not interfere. If he can survive, then Longao is qualified. Otherwise, if he dies, then so be it. At worst, we will find another target. Although Master Clairvoyant's words were cruel, Long Batian knew that it was true. With their strength, it would be easy for them to help Longao. However, if that was the case, why did they choose Longao? As Master Clairvoyant said, they could have chosen anyone. Let's go. What about the origin energy shield? Based on my estimations, the barrier you set up can last for at least 3 years. Whether it's a blessing or a curse will depend on Longao's luck. He nodded helplessly. Now that things had come to this point, even if Long Batian wanted to help Longao, he could only listen to Master Clairvoyant. Master God Diviner and Longao turned and left. From beginning to end, no one noticed the two of them. 3 days later. Just as the Grand Elder and Second Elder had said, no matter how Ren Tianxing urged them to stay, they still insisted on leaving. On the second day after the two of them left, Tong Tiandi's group of 8 arrived. Shangguan knew that Longao had been hit by her, and the probability of him dying was very high. Anyway, the Blood Soul Valley had completely blocked the news, so even if the Martial Artists Alliance intervened, no one would know. The leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi, and the 8 vice leaders, including Tang Hao and Shangguan, were all present. The Martial Artists Alliance was very unhappy about the departure of the 2 elders from the Blood Soul Valley. However, the 2 elders' strength was obvious. Since they wanted to retire, they could only agree. If they provoked 2 Nirvana Realm warriors and forced them to do something desperate, it would not be a good thing for the Martial Artists Alliance. Looking at Longao in the deep pit, Tang Hao sighed deeply in his heart. He did not know whether he was dead or alive. Until now, Tang Hao had not realized what had happened. The Martial Artists Alliance had planned to cultivate Longao, but in the blink of an eye, the grudge between Longao and the Martial Artists Alliance had reached this point. It was unwise to provoke the Martial Artists Alliance. Tang Hao felt sorry for Longao. However, as the vice leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, if he had to choose between the Alliance and Longao, he would choose the Alliance without hesitation, not Longao. Leader, Longao was hit by us and fell into the deep pit. We don't know whether he is dead or alive. Tong Tiandi did not care whether Longao was dead or alive. After being hit by 4 Nirvana Realm warriors consecutively, even if he was not dead, he would be crippled. Originally, Tong Tiandi did not plan to come. However, when he heard about the mysterious energy shield, he came to take a look himself. The original energy shield. What? Hearing the leader's words, the 8 vice leaders and Ren Tianxing were all shocked. The 9 of them knew very well what the original energy shield meant. In this world, there were only 2 people who could set up the original energy shield. One was Tian Dao, and the other was the clairvoyant. Leader, is it Tian Dao or the clairvoyant? Ren Tianxing shook his head. It shouldn't be. The 2 of them would not interfere with such trivial matters. Moreover, if it was really them, they would not have casually set up the original energy shield. I believe they would have already made their move. Everyone knew that Tian Dao and the clairvoyant had truly stepped onto the peak of martial arts. It would be a piece of cake for them to kill them. The other 9 people nodded in agreement with the leader's analysis. If it was not Tian Dao or the clairvoyant, who could it be? The 9 people could not figure it out. As for Tong Tiendi, he carefully observed the situation. After an unknown period of time, Tong Tiendi finally said, according to my guess, if there is no accident, this is an original energy shield. Longao accidentally broke in. Leader, if that is the case, does it mean that we will never be able to kill Longao in this lifetime? The 9 people knew their limits. If they wanted to break the original energy shield, it would be impossible unless Tian Dao or the clairvoyant personally came. Waving his hand, Tong Tiendi smiled and said, according to the strength of the original energy shield, it seems that it will become weaker and weaker in a few years. At that time, we will join forces and attack with all our strength. I believe that the original energy shield will automatically disappear. After thinking for a moment, Tong Tiendi continued, Longao is already dead. However, just in case, we will start attacking the original energy shield in a year. Understood, leader. Everyone agreed with Tong Tiendi's plan. Just like that, a year passed unknowingly. The 10 Nirvana realm martial artists joined forces to attack the original energy shield, but there was not the slightest change. The Martial Artists Alliance did not give up. While sealing off the news, they also guarded the deep pit with all their might. A year had passed, and the news of Longao's battle in the Blood Soul Valley still did not spread. In other words, until now, no one knew anything about this battle. It was undeniable that the Martial Artists Alliance had done a great job of sealing off the news. Otherwise, with so many people in the Blood Soul Valley, the news would have spread long ago. After the battle in the Blood Soul Valley, Longao fell. The Martial Artists Alliance tried all kinds of methods to break the original energy shield. The biggest reason was that Tong Tiendi hoped to find the original energy here. If that was the case, as long as he merged with the original energy, he would be able to reach the peak of martial arts. Spring passed and autumn came. Flowers bloomed and withered. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Chapter 1259. 3 years. For a martial artist, 3 years was just a matter of minutes. For the past 3 years, no matter what the Martial Artists Alliance did, they could not break the air shield. According to what Tong Tiendi had said, the Origin Energy Shield existed on its own and was not an Origin Energy Shield set up by the way of the heavens or the Oracle. In at most a year, the Origin Energy Shield would slowly weaken. But let alone a year, even if it took him 3 years, he still wouldn't be able to break through the barrier. At first, they were very excited. However, as the 3 years passed, the 9 people of the Martial Artists Alliance, including Ren Tianxing, were getting impatient. Could it be that the Origin Energy Shield could not be broken and they would stay here forever? That was not possible. Alliance leader, what should we do now? Even Shangguan Yi was getting impatient. After all, he had a lot of things to do and could not stay here forever. I thought that the Origin Energy Shield would weaken as time passed. Now, it seems that the Origin Energy Shield is very strong. I have tried to sense it and found that Longao's aura has not leaked out in the past 3 years. Therefore, I can be 100% sure that Longao is dead. Longao was dead. Upon hearing this, Shangguan Yi was overjoyed. He did not care whether they could break the air shield or not. The only thing that Shangguan Yi cared about was whether Longao was dead or not. Now that they had confirmed that Longao was dead, Shangguan Yi was ready to leave. Tong Tiendi sighed deeply in his heart as if he could read the thoughts of the 8 deputy leaders. He thought that since the Origin Energy Shield appeared here, there might be Origin Energy. However, They could not even break the origin energy shield, let alone obtain the so-called origin energy. Brother Ren, we are ready to leave now. As for Longao, I will leave him to you. Leave him to me? Ren Tianxing was curious and said, Alliance leader, since Longao is dead, why should we care about him? Let's just bury him. Tang Hao also said, Alliance master, Brother Ren is right. Longao is already dead. We don't need to waste time on a dead person. He thought for a moment. Nodding his head, Tong Tiendi smiled and said, You guys are right. Brother Ren, let's do as you say. However, this place must be sealed. No one is allowed to move without permission. Do you understand? Understood, Alliance Master. He felt helpless. As the Valley Master of the Blood Soul Valley, Ren Tianxing was being ordered around by Tong Tiendi. No matter who it was, no one would be willing to accept this. However, with Tong Tiendi's status, Ren Tianxing didn't dare to voice his anger. The next moment, Heavenly Emperor Tong brought the 8 deputy alliance heads and left. Before long, they already disappeared without a trace. Only Ren Tianxing was left in the square. His son was dead, and the 2 elders had left. Who had he offended? He thought that his flattery could help the development of the Blood Soul Valley, but what was the result? He didn't expect that the Martial Artists Alliance would sacrifice him and the entire Blood Soul Valley for Longao. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. So what if he was angry? The previous Blood Soul Valley didn't dare to offend the Martial Artists Alliance, let alone the current Blood Soul Valley. With the departure of the 2 elders, the overall strength of the Blood Soul Valley had been reduced by 2/3. It was a big problem whether they could continue to be a second-rate force, let alone fight against the Martial Artists Alliance. Ren Tianxing sighed deeply again. Things had come to this point. He knew that he had suffered a great loss and there was nothing he could do. Now, there was only one thing to do, and that was to slowly develop the Blood Soul Valley and protect it. Looking at the deep pit in front of Longao, Ren Tianxing ordered the huge pit to be buried. 2 hours later, the deep pit had been filled. It was impossible to tell that there was a deep pit before. Inside the deep pit, after 3 years, Longao's aura had disappeared. Anyone would think that Longao was dead. But was Longao really dead? There was no doubt about it. In Longao's body, his divine soul was circulating. His damaged divine soul was surrounded by a kind of reincarnation power, and it was constantly healing his divine soul. The reincarnation power was the reincarnation power that Longao had condensed from cultivating the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Under normal circumstances, Longao being struck with the full power of 4 Nirvana realm martial artists, he would definitely perish. But what was the result? Longao had died, but the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique in his body automatically circulated. Even Longao himself didn't know about this. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was a heaven-defying cultivation technique born from the Dragon Seal space. It was extremely difficult to cultivate. Even Long Tien couldn't cultivate it back then. One could imagine how difficult it was to cultivate the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Longao's talent and cultivation speed were extremely fast. But even so, after so many years, no matter how hard Longao worked, he was only able to cultivate to the 2nd revolution of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, which allowed him to achieve spatial teleportation. Longao was looking forward to the next 7 revolutions of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Since the 2nd revolution could allow him to achieve spatial teleportation, it was hard to imagine how big of a surprise the next 7 revolutions would be. However, Longao was very depressed. No matter how he cultivated, the 9-cycle reincarnation technique still did not move in the slightest. However, at this moment, the 9-cycle reincarnation technique automatically started to circulate. Moreover, it automatically released the power of reincarnation, firmly enveloping Longao's already destroyed spirit. In Longao's mind, the divine soul was surrounded by grayish-black airflow. Gradually, these grayish-black airflow began to spin crazily. The faster the spinning speed, not only did the divine soul slowly recover, it even began to slowly become stronger. Ah! Longao let out a low cry of pain. Because the deep pit was already buried, no one outside could hear him. If the 9 members of the Martial Artists Alliance and Ren Tianxing were here at this moment, who knew what they would think if they heard Longao's sudden cry of pain? Longao was hit by the full force of the 4 Nirvana realm martial artists. There was no doubt that he would die. However, no one knew that Longao not only had the protection of the sacred desolation body, but also cultivated the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. If Tong Tiendi and the others knew that Longao was not dead, they would probably regret it. If they knew, Tong Tiendi and the others would definitely not leave, especially Ren Tianxing. However, in order to deal with Longao, the Blood Soul Valley had not only lost 2 elders, but he had also lost his own son. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was incomparably powerful. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique could fight against the heavens and earth. When his master completed the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, he would also set foot on the peak of martial arts. Long Fu was looking forward to seeing his master take that step. At this moment, Long Fu's words suddenly appeared in Longao's mind. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was praised by Long Fu as the most powerful technique in the world. Chapter 1260. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique would make a breakthrough every time he experienced a life and death situation. Longao had never expected that he would be able to rely on the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique to preserve his divine soul from being destroyed even though he had already fallen. Not only that, the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique began to circulate wildly and successfully broke through to the 3rd revolution. 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, the first revolution of reincarnation, not entering the Yellow Springs. The 2nd revolution of reincarnation, spatial teleportation. All along, Longao had always wanted to know what the 3rd revolution of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was. The grayish-black air current forcefully split the divine soul in Longao's mind into 2. That's right, the divine soul was split into 2. The most crucial part of a martial artist's cultivation was the divine soul. Once the divine soul was destroyed, not only would it be impossible to be reborn, it would also be impossible to enter the cycle of reincarnation. The divine soul was also the most important cultivation source of a martial artist. It was impossible to split into 2. However, the divine soul in Longao's mind was forcefully split apart by the power of reincarnation produced by the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, forming 2 independent divine souls. If news of this were to spread, no one would believe it. Unbelievable. Ah! Howling in pain, Longao's body trembled continuously due to the pain. His divine soul was forcefully split into 2. Who could withstand such pain? Longao did not dare to be careless. Using his last trace of consciousness, he forcefully circulated the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Even so, his divine soul was still split apart. Large beads of sweat dripped down continuously. The pain of his divine soul being split into 2 was so excruciating that he did not know what to do. It was worse than death. Longao knew that this was the sign of a breakthrough in the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. He had to grit his teeth. Otherwise, all his efforts would be for naught. The 2nd revolution, teleportation, was simply too powerful. Longao was looking forward to seeing what kind of ability the 3rd revolution would produce. He gritted his teeth and persevered. Longao's body was already filled with the power of reincarnation. Even his bloodline was being suppressed. The power of reincarnation was incomparably powerful. Longao gritted his teeth and persevered in such pain. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 2 hours. 1 day and night. 3 days and 3 nights. For 3 days and 3 nights, no matter how painful it was, Longao gritted his teeth and persevered. He did not choose to give up. Just like this, after 3 days and 3 nights, the soul in his mind finally split into 2. 2 independent souls? Feeling the 2 divine souls in his body, Longao was a little dumbfounded. This was because a martial artist with 2 divine souls had never happened before. Even if he cultivated the 9 revolving samsara arts, it would still be very difficult for him to achieve this. What exactly happened? Longao didn't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing that he had used the 9 revolutions samsara arts to produce 2 souls. Longao's body couldn't move at all. The auras of the 2 divine souls were exactly the same. Longao was actually a little dumbfounded. He had thought that he had survived this calamity and could even break through the 9 cycles reincarnation technique. It was a double blessing. How could he have known that he would encounter such a situation right after breaking through the 9 cycles reincarnation technique? Splitting his divine soul into 2 was indeed a little strange. What should I do? Just like that, Longao lay quietly in the deep pit. He didn't move at all, as if he was half dead. Longao didn't continue to dwell on the matter of his divine soul splitting. He suddenly thought about what had happened before. He had been defeated by Shangguan Yi and the others. Since that was the case, why didn't Shangguan Yi and the others kill him instead of pulling out the weeds by the roots? If you don't pull out the weeds by the roots, they will grow again when the spring breeze blows. It was impossible that Shangguan Yi didn't know this principle. If that was the case, why didn't Shangguan Yi make a move? By the time Longao woke up, the origin energy shield had already disappeared. According to the clairvoyant master and Longao, the origin energy shield would disappear after 3 years, regardless of whether Longao was alive or dead. Longao didn't know about this, and neither did Shangguan Yi and the others. Otherwise, Shangguan Yi and the others wouldn't have left even if they were beaten to death. Just as Longao had thought, if you don't pull out the weeds by the roots, they will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Perhaps all of this had been premeditated by fate. It could also be said that Longao was too lucky. He had escaped a disaster and saved his life. Am I still in the Blood Soul Valley? Longao was a little surprised, because he was sure that he was underground and couldn't leave the Blood Soul Valley without anyone's help. What was going on? Where was the ancestor? This time, he entered the Blood Soul Valley mainly to find the ancestor's reincarnated body. However, before he could find it, he was besieged by Shangguan Yi and almost died. Longao had decided that there were 3 things he needed to do to survive this disaster. The first thing was to continue looking for the ancestor's reincarnated body. After all, the ancestor's reincarnation couldn't be delayed. The more time he wasted, the more danger he would be in. The second thing was to take revenge on the Blood Soul Valley. Originally, there was no enmity between him and the Blood Soul Valley. He entered the Blood Soul Valley just to find the ancestor's reincarnated body. However, the Blood Soul Valley betrayed him and told Shangguan Yi about his whereabouts. The third thing was to take revenge on Shangguan Yi. Longao knew very well that if he didn't kill Shangguan Yi, it would be troublesome for him. After all, Shanghai Yi's strength and identity were obvious. 3 things. Each of them was incomparably difficult, but they had to be done, and they had to be done as soon as possible. Longao's mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts. The 2 spirits in his body were still wrapped by the reincarnation power and were constantly entering the 2 spirits. At this moment, Longao was still unable to move. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was infinitely close to a breakthrough. It could be said that he was halfway through the breakthrough. Longao knew that the breakthrough was only halfway, so he should be able to split his spirit into 2. The next half of the breakthrough was the most crucial. Until now, Longao still didn't know what the 3rd revolution of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique would be. He also didn't know if the supernormal ability would be as powerful as spatial teleportation. Longao didn't dare act rashly. Under such circumstances, he could only do his best to circulate the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique and cooperate with the reincarnation power. Longao couldn't do anything else. This was because Longao didn't know if he would die if he messed around. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was too powerful. It could split one's spirit into 2. He believed that there wasn't a single cultivation technique in the world that could do this. In fact, Longao was also very depressed. This was because the 3 times he had broken through the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, he had only broken through in a moment of life and death. He had almost died. Could it be that the subsequent breakthroughs would also have to experience a moment of life and death? If that was the case, it would be a little too painful. After all, no one knew if the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique would break through in a moment of life and death. What if he couldn't break through and died? P.S. Sorry everyone. During this period, Little 9 has been working outside. It's almost the new year, so he needs to earn some extra money for the new year. I'm not looking for any excuses. As soon as I returned home from delivering goods, I immediately started writing. Chapter 1261. At this moment, 2 hours after the divine soul split, the power of reincarnation in Longao's body began to circulate crazily. Longao was startled, but he still didn't dare to act rashly. Who knew what would happen next? 3 cycles of reincarnation, divine soul indestructible. For some reason, 8 words suddenly appeared in Longao's mind. 3 cycles of reincarnation, divine soul indestructible. What did that mean? Longao was a little dumbfounded. Could it be that with the breakthrough of the 9 cycles reincarnation technique, not only did his divine soul split into 2, but it also reached immortality? If that was the case, then he had really profited from a disaster. Longao knew very well what it meant to have an indestructible divine soul. The meaning was clear. As long as one's divine soul wasn't destroyed, one would be immortal. In other words, even if one's physical body was destroyed, one's divine soul could be reborn and even enter the path of reincarnation. This was the 9 cycles reincarnation technique. It was a little too powerful, so powerful that it was a little unbelievable. What happened next made Longao completely dumbfounded. After the divine soul split into 2, not only did it reach immortality, but it also produced another divine soul that left the mind and entered the Dantian. The chaotic Dantian was originally empty, but because of the entry of the divine soul, countless black chi suddenly emerged from the chaotic Dantian and surrounded the divine soul. What was going on? Longao didn't dare to move. Everything that happened in his body was a little beyond his imagination. Such a thing had probably never happened before. In the next moment, the divine soul began to spin wildly and the surrounding black chi began to pour into it. Doppelganger? Divine soul doppelganger? No, to be precise, it should be the reincarnation immortal doppelganger. That was the message that the 9 cycles reincarnation technique gave to Longao. At this moment, Longao finally understood what was going on in his body. When he broke through the 2nd cycle of the 9 cycles reincarnation technique, he produced the terrifying mystic ability of space teleportation. This time, at the moment of life and death, he broke through the 3rd cycle of the 9 cycles reincarnation technique. Not only did he forcefully split his divine soul into 2, he even reached immortality and condensed a reincarnation doppelganger. The characteristic of the reincarnation avatar was that it was indestructible. Not only was the divine soul indestructible, but even the physical body was indestructible. However, there was one thing about the reincarnation doppelganger. That was that the divine soul that was separated from the reincarnation doppelganger did not have the slightest consciousness of resistance. It completely obeyed the reincarnation doppelganger's orders. From a certain point of view, this was both a good and bad thing. In other words, the reincarnation doppelganger had a normal mind and was as smart as him. However, it only listened to his orders. As long as he did not give the order, the reincarnation doppelganger would not care about the lives of others. In any case, the immortality of the incarnation was what Longao valued the most. Longao was even more aware that reincarnated avatars were different from corpse demons and soul slaves. Whether it was soul slaves or corpse slaves, although they were said to be indestructible, under the absolute disparity in strength, both soul slaves and corpse slaves would be destroyed. However, the reincarnation doppelganger was different. Longao had a feeling that not to mention a Nirvana realm martial artist, even the heavenly Tao and the Oracle would find it difficult to destroy the reincarnation doppelganger. This did not mean that the reincarnation doppelganger could contend against a pinnacle martial artist. It only meant that the reincarnation doppelganger's physical defense could ignore all attacks. However, when it came to offense, if he and the reincarnation doppelganger worked together, It would be more than enough to kill a human god realm martial artist. Longao was confident that he could even fight an earth god. This was the power of the reincarnation doppelganger. Longao had never imagined that the third cycle of the 9 cycles reincarnation technique would be to reproduce an immortality doppelganger. This kind of doppelganger was even more powerful than teleportation. Longao had thought that after breaking through the 9 cycles reincarnation technique, this matter would come to an end and he could leave. But what was the result? Longao's face was filled with joy. Because he had broken through to the spirit focus realm not long ago, he had also successfully broken through with the breakthrough of the 9 cycle reincarnation technique. His divine soul had condensed and transformed from the spirit focus realm to the mortal god realm. In 3 years, Longao had broken through from the spirit focus realm to the human god realm. Although it seemed slow, it was actually extremely fast. A martial artist's cultivation itself was a heaven-defying act. It had to be done step by step. It was also because of this that the speed of martial artists' cultivation was extremely slow. Often, it would take years, decades, or even centuries to break through to the next realm. Moreover, Longao had unconsciously broken through from the spirit focus realm to the human god realm. Longao was also a little dazed. He had clearly been beaten to death this time, but he did not expect that 2 joyous events would come at the same time. Not only did he successfully break through the 9 cycles reincarnation technique, but he had also broken through from the spirit focus realm to the human god realm. Inside the god punishing sword. Sister, why don't we try again and see if we can break through the god punishing sword and leave? 3 whole years. Bai Ling was constantly worried. 3 years ago, Longao had been struck. Just as Bai Ling was about to make a move, she was stopped by Xiling. As a result, Longao's fate was still unknown. It was impossible to say that she did not have any resentment. However, Bai Ling was a very kind person. She had never complained in these 3 years. But in these 3 years, Bai Ling had not stopped at all. She had been trying to break the seal, hoping to leave the god punishing sword as soon as possible and see if Longao was still alive or dead. Sister, you don't have to try anymore. With our strength, it's impossible to break through the god punishing sword. If we can recover our original strength, we might have a chance. Sister, 3 years ago, why didn't you let me make a move? Bai Ling finally asked. Bai Ling, I know what you're thinking. I also know that you've always hated me. But 3 years ago, if you had made a move, you would have been discovered by Tian Dao and the clairvoyant master. At that time, not only would you and I be in trouble, even Longao would be in big trouble. Do you understand? Bai Ling was very kind, but she was not stupid. Bai Ling understood her sister's words. So it was because of Tian Dao and the clairvoyant master. No wonder her sister had stopped her. But even so, Bai Ling was still worried. Sister, what should we do now? Don't worry, Longao is not dead. If he's dead, we can leave the god punishing sword. Bai Ling sighed deeply. With the god punishing sword sealed, all she could do was worry. Big brother Long, I hope you're fine. Bai Ling prayed inside that her big brother Long was fine. Otherwise, she didn't know what to do. Don't worry, Longao's life is very tough. To be able to survive like this, it seems Longao isn't simple. The 2 genlings felt an indescribable feeling when they thought of Longao's identity. The Lun clan was one of the strongest races of the ancient era. In the tiny martial heaven continent, there was actually a Lun clan member. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Author's note: the 6th chapter has been delivered. I hope everyone will give their monthly votes and recommendation votes to Little 9. Chapter 1262. Bai Ling, I'm fine. Inside the god-killing sword, Bai Ling, who had been extremely worried, was overjoyed when she heard Longao's words. Brother Long, are you all right? I'll find you later. I have something important to do now. Bai Ling was pleasantly surprised to the extreme. For 3 whole years, she had been worried about Longao's safety. Now that she finally heard Longao's words, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Brother Long is finally fine. In the deep pit. After successfully condensing the reincarnation doppelganger and breaking through to the man-god realm, Longao found that he could finally move his body. There was no hesitation. Longao turned around and did not leave openly. Instead, he chose to teleport and left quietly. Longao already knew what had happened. He did not expect that 3 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Longao did not leave the Blood Soul Valley immediately. Instead, he killed a disciple of the Blood Soul Valley and seized his soul. He wanted to find out more about the Blood Soul Valley. After a day of investigation, Longao finally knew what had happened in the past 3 years. The Martial Artists Alliance had interfered and attacked him for 3 years. Longao's face became colder and colder. It seemed that not only Shangguan Yi, but also Tong Tiendi and the others were not willing to let him go. In this way, he and the Martial Artists Alliance were like fire and water. One of them had to die. Martial Artists Alliance. After saying this coldly, Longao's figure disappeared. In the lobby of the Blood Soul Valley, Ren Tianxing sat alone in the lobby with a gloomy face. Ren Tianxing was still brooding over what had happened 3 years ago. In that battle, not only had his son been killed, but 2 elders had also left the sect. First, he had lost his son. Then, he had lost 2 of his elders. This was a huge blow to him and the entire sect. Ren Tianxing, I haven't seen you in 3 years. How have you been? Looking at the young man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Ren Tianxing's expression changed drastically. He immediately stood up with a look of shock on his face. Ren Tianxing had never imagined that Longao, who had died 3 years ago, would suddenly appear here. What exactly happened? Ren Tianxing was dumbfounded. You don't recognize me? After fiercely swallowing his saliva, Ren Tianxing had a bitter smile on his face because he already knew what had happened. Longao from 3 years ago was actually not dead at all. Longao, you're really lucky. You're still alive. Longao smiled. Ren Tianxing, why don't we speak frankly? 3 years ago, I killed your son, but there is no such thing as father and son on the battlefield. You betrayed me, you can't blame anyone for this matter. Am I right? He nodded. From the beginning to the end, Ren Tianxing did not resent Longao because he knew that his son's death was caused by Shangguan Yi. In order to kill Longao, Shangguan Yi did not hesitate to sacrifice her son and even the entire Blood Soul Valley. Shangguan Yi was extremely angry, but she did not dare to say anything. Longao, the grudge between you and me. Ren Tianxing waved his hand. Without waiting for Ren Tianxing to finish his words, Longao said, there is no enmity between me and the Blood Soul Valley. You brought this upon yourself. Ren Tianxing, let me give you a piece of advice. When you should stop, stop. Otherwise, the Blood Soul Valley will be destroyed. At this point, Longao did not continue, but the meaning in his words was very clear. If Longao had said this 3 years ago, Ren Tianxing would not have taken it to heart. But now, Ren Tianxing's expression became more serious because Longao was definitely not a simple person. In the battle 3 years ago, everyone knew that Longao would definitely die. But in the end, Longao did not die. Not only that, Ren Tianxing could clearly sense that his aura had become stronger. He was obviously a man-god. Longao, what do you want? It's very simple. The Blood Soul Valley betrayed me. As long as you help me do one thing, the grudge between us will be written off. How about it? Ren Tianxing thought for a moment and asked, what is it? Help me lure out Shangguan Yi. So simple. Yes, it's that simple. After surviving this calamity, Longao had already decided that other than continuing to search for the reincarnated body of the old ancestor, the rest of the matter was to take revenge. And the first person he would take revenge on was Shangguan Yi. As for Ren Tianxing and the Blood Soul Valley, Longao only knew one thing. If others did not offend him, he would not offend them. If others wanted to offend him, he would retaliate. Also, the more merciful he was to his enemy, the more cruel he would be to himself. Longao, I'm very curious. With your strength, it's impossible for you to be a match for Shangguan Yi. Even if I lure out Shangguan Yi, I'm afraid you still don't have the strength to kill Shangguan Yi. Ren Tianxing was very curious about this. Even if Longao's cultivation had made a breakthrough, he was only a man-god. The difference between him and a Nirvana realm cultivator was too great. The two of them were not even on the same level. However, Longao smiled and said, "Ren Tianxing, you don't have to worry about this. You just need to lure out Shangguan Yi." At this point, Ren Tianxing certainly would not refuse. If Shangguan Yi had not given up on him and the Blood Soul Valley, Ren Tianxing might not have agreed. He might even attack Longao. However, his son's death and the departure of the two elders filled Ren Tianxing's heart with resentment. He could not wait to kill Shangguan Yi. Anyway, the Blood Soul Valley could no longer dominate the second-rate forces. In this case, Ren Tianxing had decided that after dealing with Shangguan Yi, he would retreat with the Blood Soul Valley. He could not afford to provoke the Martial Artists Alliance. At worst, he would just avoid them. No matter how powerful the Martial Artists Alliance was, it would not be easy to find him and his sect in the vast Qianwu continent. Thinking of this, Ren Tianxing immediately got up and left the Blood Soul Valley. A few hours later, Ren Tianxing had successfully arrived at the Martial Artists Alliance. Shangguan Yi was very curious about Ren Tianxing's arrival. However, she still asked with a smile, "Brother Ren, what brings you here?" Although the Blood Soul Valley had lost two Nirvana realm warriors, Shangguan Yi still valued the Blood Soul Valley very much. After all, Ren Tianxing was a Nirvana realm warrior. The Blood Soul Valley was more or less useful to the Martial Artists Alliance. "Brother Shangguan, do you still remember the original energy shield that appeared in the deep pit when we hit Longao?" Shangguan Yi nodded. Of course, she knew about the original energy shield. It was also because of the original energy shield that the 9 Nirvana realm warriors of the Martial Artists Alliance had guarded it for 3 years. In the end, if it were not for the fact that the original energy shield could not be broken, they would have continued to guard it. What did Ren Tianxing mean? Chapter 1263. Brother Shangguan, after you left, I suddenly realized that the origin energy shield had disappeared. After I destroyed Longao, I realized that there was origin energy under the origin energy shield. Are you serious? He stood up immediately. Shangguan Yi was pleasantly surprised. Others might not know what origin energy meant, but as a Nirvana realm martial artist, how could he not know? There was only one way for a Nirvana realm martial artist to break through the last step. That was to merge with origin energy. However, it was common knowledge among Nirvana realm martial artists that the origin energy of Qianwu continent was controlled by the way of heaven. In other words, it was extremely difficult to get origin energy. Let's go. They could not wait any longer. Shangguan Yi was not willing to wait for even a minute. He did not even inform anyone. Shangguan Yi was very selfish. In his opinion, as long as he could get origin energy and merge with it, he could break through the Nirvana realm and reach the so-called peak realm of martial arts. Although the Nirvana realm martial artist and the peak realm of martial arts were only one level apart, the gap between them was like heaven and earth. The peak realm of martial arts was the most powerful martial artist in the world. Ren Tianxing sneered in his heart. Ren Tianxing had already thought of a countermeasure for this trip to the Martial Artists Alliance. He knew that no matter what, Shangguan Yi would be suspicious, except for origin energy. Ren Tianxing knew Shangguan Yi too well. In fact, Shangguan Yi was really blinded by origin energy. If he really had origin energy, why would Ren Tianxing tell him? Why not keep it for himself? That was the origin energy, not something else. Origin energy was the dream of all Nirvana realm martial artists. Blood Soul Valley. The disciples of Blood Soul Valley could now go in and out freely. However, Ren Tianxing had ordered that no one was to reveal what happened 3 years ago. Once discovered, they would be killed without mercy. That was right. 3 years ago, no one knew about the battle between Longao and Blood Soul Valley. Longao's reputation began to fade. Blood Soul Valley, in front of the main hall. Shangguan Yi and Ren Tianxing returned without a hitch, and they arrived at the center of the square, where Longao was buried. Brother Ren, where is origin energy? Ren Tianxing suddenly sneered and said, Shangguan Yi, 3 years ago, in order to help you, I offended Longao. I did not expect that in order to kill Longao, you would sacrifice my son, and even 2 elders left the sect. Ren Tianxing's sudden words made Shangguan Yi a little confused. Brother Ren, what's wrong? Shangguan Yi was very curious. Normally, Ren Tianxing would be very respectful to him. But at this moment, it seemed like Ren Tianxing had taken the wrong medicine. Ha ha ha, Shangguan Yi, I really want to see how you die. Longao, come out. Since things had come to this, Ren Tianxing had decided to completely fall out with Shangguan Yi. This time, regardless of whether Shangguan Yi was alive or dead, he would leave with the sect. If Shangguan Yi and Longao both suffered heavy injuries, and both of them died, then he could be considered to have avenged his son. Longao? Shangguan Yi was shocked when he heard the name Longao. Didn't Longao die 3 years ago? Ren Tianxing, are you out of your mind? Longao did not appear. Ren Tianxing was a little dumbfounded. According to the agreement between him and Longao, as long as he lured Shangguan Yi out, he would leave the rest to Longao. As for whether Longao could kill Shanghai Yi, it was between the two of them. It had nothing to do with Ren Tianxing. But now, Longao did not appear. Was Longao playing a trick? As the Valley Master of the Blood Soul Valley, Ren Tianxing was also an old fox. How could he not know what Longao meant? He had been fooled. He was extremely angry, but he still said the same thing. Since things had come to this, he would definitely fall out with Shangguan Yi. The only thing he was glad about was that Shanghai Yi, who wanted to take the origin energy for herself, did not tell the Martial Artists Alliance about this. Even if Longao did not appear, what could he do? As long as he killed Shangguan Yi, no one would know about this matter. Ren Tianxing, what are you playing at? Shangguan Yi did not believe Ren Tianxing's words at all. Longao was not dead. Regardless of whether others believed it or not, he would never believe it. Shangguan Yi, since you are here, stay. I want to avenge my son and my dead disciples. After hearing Ren Tianxing's words, Shangguan Yi understood what had happened. It was fake that Longao was not dead, and so was the origin energy. Ren Tianxing's real purpose was to lure him to the Blood Soul Valley and kill him. Revenge? Shangguan Yi sneered in his heart. His face was full of disdain and contempt. He said mockingly, Ren Tianxing, you can't blame anyone for your son's death. You can only blame Longao. However, since you put the blame on me, I will accept it. You are not my match. If you are willing to hand over your spiritual soul, I can consider letting you and the Blood Soul Valley go. From the beginning to the end, Shangguan Yi did not take Ren Tianxing seriously. Shangguan Yi, don't be so arrogant. If it was 10 years ago, I might be afraid of you. But now, hearing this, Shangguan Yi's expression changed slightly. He knew Ren Tianxing very well. Without full confidence, Ren Tianxing would not dare to do this. Could it be that Ren Tianxing had made a breakthrough? In the distance, Longao stood alone and looked coldly at the 2 people who were staring at each other in the distance. He believed that the 2 of them could not avoid this battle. He was very successful in using a borrowed knife to kill. Bai Ling, I want to ask you, is there a high and low Nirvana realm? There were 5 realms of the Divine Path and 4 supreme realms. Longao had a feeling that the so-called Nirvana realm was also divided into different levels of strength. It was just that he did not know about it. He wanted to take this opportunity to ask Bai Ling. He believed that with Bai Ling's strength, she would know about the division of strength of the Nirvana realm. A white figure flashed and Bai Ling's figure appeared. Bai Ling nodded and said, "That's right, Brother Long. Above the 4 supreme realms are the 6 realms of Nirvana realm." As expected, there were 5 realms of the Divine Path, 4 supreme realms, and 6 realms of Nirvana realm. It seemed that above the peak of Nirvana realm was the peak of Martial Dao, which was the realm that Tian Dao and the Oracle had reached. Bai Ling, what are the 6 realms of Nirvana realm? Brother Long, it's very simple. The 6 realms of Nirvana realm, from low to high, are the Perception realm, Celestial Being realm, Heavenly Cycle realm, Fate Calamity realm, Nirvana realm, and Rebirth realm. Chapter 1264. Brother Long, Only by comprehending the heaven and earth can one condense the aura of heaven and earth. As for the nirvana rebirth, one can possess a primordial spirit. Longao was not very concerned about the 6 realms of the nirvana realm. One had to be careful at every step on the path of cultivation. He was only at the man-god realm now. There was a huge gap between the nirvana realm and the nirvana realm, let alone the nirvana rebirth realm. Brother Long, will the two of them really fight? Definitely. Longao was very confident about this. Ren Tianxing had already put all his eggs in one basket. In addition, his son had died tragically 3 years ago. Ren Tianxing would definitely not let Shangguan Yi go this time. Longao knew very well that Ren Tianxing would definitely not help him this time if he was not very confident. No one was a fool to have a foolproof plan. Ren Tianxing, I'll give you one last chance. Ha ha ha, what a load of nonsense. I'd like to see how you're going to leave the Blood Soul Valley today. Ren Tianxing had already sealed off the entire square. No one was allowed to enter without permission. In other words, the battle between the two of them would not be discovered by anyone. Even if they were discovered by the disciples, so what? As long as he was fast enough, he could leave with the sect. It would not be easy for the Martial Artists Alliance to find him. Since things had already come to this point, Ren Tianxing knew very well that Shangguan Yi had to die. In the next second, Ren Tianxing had already dashed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of heaven and earth had already arrived. Primordial spirit. Shangguan Yi was completely dumbfounded when he sensed that Ren Tianxing's aura of heaven and earth had merged with the power of the primordial spirit. This was because he had never thought that Ren Tianxing, who had always been obedient to him, would actually be a Nirvana rebirth realm martial artist. Among the 6 realms of the Nirvana realm, the Nirvana realm was the peak. Due to the breakthrough of the Nirvana rebirth realm, the spiritual soul would transform and completely transform into a primordial spirit. The gap between the spiritual soul and the primordial spirit was huge. This was also why Ren Tianxing was so confident. He did not dare to be careless. Shangguan Yi had already lost his will to continue fighting. He could not wait to turn around and leave immediately. Shangguan Yi had already reached the Nirvana realm and was only a step away from the rebirth realm. The difference between the two of them was only in the primordial spirit and divine soul. However, Shangguan Yi knew very well that with Ren Tianxing's strength, she would definitely lose if they continued to fight like this. Let's go. This was Shangguan Yi's first thought. But would Ren Tianxing agree? Ren Tianxing wasn't a fool. Once Ren Tianxing left and returned to the Martial Artists Alliance, he would be in big trouble. When the Martial Artists Alliance's army arrived, not only him, but the entire Blood Soul Valley would be destroyed in an instant. Nirvana rebirth. Although Ren Tianxing was confident in his own strength, he knew very well that there were many masters in the Martial Artists Alliance. Even the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi, was not someone he could fight against. Tong Tiandi, a super figure in the top 10 of the Heaven leaderboard. What about him? He could not even enter the top 15 of the Heaven leaderboard. Therefore, no matter what happened, he could not allow Shangguan Yi to leave the Blood Soul Valley and return to the Martial Artists Alliance. This battle could only be won, not lost. That was exactly what he wanted. Ren Tianxing was going all out. His palms turned into countless palm shadows and danced in the air. From afar, it was impossible to see Ren Tianxing's figure clearly. This was the speed of a Nirvana realm warrior. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already exchanged 30 moves. There was no clear winner for the time being, but the gap between their strength was still huge. If they continued to fight, Shangguan Yi would definitely lose and Ren Tianxing would win. Shangguan Yi, I'll show you my blood soul palm. As soon as he finished speaking, Ren Tianxing's speed suddenly increased. His figure was like a shooting star. Then, Ren Tianxing continued to throw out countless blood-red palm shadows. One palm strike after another, the palm strikes never stopped. The sky was filled with palm shadows. It was like a sea of blood, which looked extremely strange. Retreating step by step, Shangguan Yi's expression became more and more unsightly. Ren Tianxing's palms were too powerful, and he would definitely die in less than 10 moves. Was he going to die like this? Shangguan Yi was definitely unwilling to accept this. Left with no choice, Shanghai Yi could only grit his teeth and prepare to escape using the blood escape. However, at this moment, the aura of heaven and earth descended and shrouded the two of them. The two of them who were fighting were forcibly separated. Ren Tianxing was shocked when he saw Tong Tiandi in front of him. He did not know why Tong Tiandi suddenly appeared. Alliance Master. Shangguan Yi heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the Alliance Master. Although Ren Tianxing's cultivation had reached the Nirvana realm, there was still a difference in strength between the same realm. As a Nirvana realm martial artist, the Alliance Master's strength was infinitely close to the peak of martial arts, and he was ranked in the top 10 of the Heaven Roll. Ren Tianxing was definitely not a match for the Alliance Master. Moreover, the Alliance Master had just attacked and Ren Tianxing was forcibly separated. This in itself showed the difference in strength between the Alliance Master and Ren Tianxing. Mph, Shangguan Yi, I will punish you when we return to the Alliance Master later. Remember, if you want to obtain the origin energy, you have to consider your own strength. Next time, I will not interfere. Shangguan Yi's heart skipped a beat. He had never seen the Alliance Master like this. It seemed that he had crossed the Alliance Master's bottom line by coming here without permission, especially in search of the origin energy. He would be lying if he said that he was not afraid. Shangguan Yi retreated to the side and did not dare to say a word because he did not know if the Alliance Master would kill him. The origin energy was the Alliance Master's bottom line. No one dared to violate it. Ren Tianxing, even if you are dissatisfied with the Alliance, you don't have to do this. Our Alliance has always taken care of your Blood Soul Valley. Why are you doing this to the Alliance? Ren Tianxing laughed and said, Alliance Master, I know your character very well. 3 years ago, in order to help Shangguan Yi deal with Longao, I even sacrificed my son. But what about Shangguan Yi? He did not put the Blood Soul Valley in his eyes at all. Such a person will destroy the Alliance sooner or later. You. Pa. Before Shangguan Yi could finish speaking, a slap landed on Shangguan Yi's face. This slap stunned Shangguan Yi. As the Vice Alliance Master of the Alliance, Shangguan Yi's status was there. Even Tong Tiandi would not normally act like this. Because of this, Shangguan Yi kept retreating because he knew that the Alliance Master was really angry at this moment. Otherwise, the Alliance Master would not treat him like this. Shangguan Yi is the Vice Alliance Master after all. Even if you have made a mistake, you should tell me and not kill someone without permission. Author's note, delivered in Chapter 9, delivered in the morning. Chapter 1265. Shielding. Ren Tianxing cursed in his heart. Tong Tiandi was obviously trying to protect Shangguan Yi, who was standing behind him. Ren Tianxing, I'll give you a chance. As long as you agree, I'll let bygones be bygones. Alliance Master, please. Ren Tianxing could ignore Shangguan Yi, but he didn't dare to ignore Tong Tiandi. Especially now. Ren Tianxing knew very well that Tong Tiandi could destroy Blood Soul Valley and himself at any time if he wanted to. From now on, Blood Soul Valley will no longer exist in Tianwu continent. Alliance Master, what do you mean? Ren Tianxing was shocked by Tong Tiandi's words. My meaning is simple. From now on, you and Blood Soul Valley will join the Alliance. But you can rest assured that you'll become the Deputy Alliance Master. Ren Tianxing had to admit that Tong Tiandi's offer was very tempting. Blood Soul Valley was one of the top second-rate forces, but it was nothing compared to the Martial Artists Alliance. If it were someone else, they might agree. But Ren Tianxing. He would rather be the Valley Master of Blood Soul Valley than the Deputy Alliance Master of Martial Artists Alliance. But Ren Tianxing knew that he couldn't refuse under such circumstances. Ren Tianxing didn't say anything and just stood there quietly. All of a sudden. Alliance Master, if I use a secret to exchange with you, can I not hand over the Blood Soul Valley and even write off the debt? He was a little surprised. Tong Tiandi didn't agree. After all, no one knew what the other party's secret was. What if it wasn't worth it? The Martial Artists Alliance wanted to conquer Blood Soul Valley for a long time. But the Martial Artists Alliance knew that Blood Soul Valley had 3 Nirvana Realm warriors. They wouldn't agree so easily. That was why the Martial Artists Alliance had delayed for so long. But what was the result? The 2 elders of Blood Soul Valley had left, and Blood Soul Valley's strength had decreased by 2/3. It would be a lie to say that Ren Tianxing didn't feel bad. In order to prevent further accidents from happening, Tong Tiendi was prepared to immediately incorporate the Blood Soul Valley, especially the Blood Soul Valley's chief Tianxing. Among the 8 vice presidents of the Martial Artists Alliance, only a few could defeat Ren Tianxing. Alliance Master, Longao is not dead. Bullshit. Ren Tianxing, don't talk nonsense here. Tong Tiendi waved his hand and stopped Shangguan Yi. Tong Tiendi knew that Ren Tianxing wouldn't have said that if he wasn't completely confident. Moreover, he had already arrived, so Ren Tianxing had no reason to provoke him. Could it be that Longao was still alive? Ren Tianxing, you know the consequences of lying to me. Alliance Master, I don't have to lie to you. The reason why I attacked Shangguan Yi this time was because Longao threatened me and asked me to lure Shangguan Yi here. However, Longao didn't appear, so I had no choice but to attack Shangguan Yi. Not only Tong Tiendi, but even Shangguan Yi chose to believe Ren Tianxing at this time. If it weren't for Longao, Ren Tianxing wouldn't have attacked Shangguan Yi for no reason unless he had nothing better to do. Alliance Master, I have a feeling that Longao is still in Blood Soul Valley. Maybe he's nearby. Ren Tianxing nodded. If what you said is true and Longao isn't dead, then he wants you to fight each other so that both sides will suffer. It seems that Longao wants to take revenge on us. Tong Tiendi's expression was very serious. If it were anyone else, he wouldn't have taken them seriously. However, Longao was different. In just a few years, he had grown to such a level. Moreover, 3 years ago, everyone thought that Longao was dead. However, Longao was still alive and had single-handedly directed this show. This could only mean that Longao was not a simple person. Leaving this person alive would cause endless trouble in the future. Now, Longao and the Martial Artists Alliance were like fire and water. It could be said that only one side could survive. If they couldn't kill Longao, it would definitely bring endless trouble to the Martial Artists Alliance in the future. Longao, since you're here, why don't you show yourself? Alliance Master, I haven't seen you in 3 years. You look good. Longao did not continue to hide. With the help of spatial teleportation, he had already arrived in front of the 3 people. His face was calm. Longao did not have the slightest fear. Just this courage alone was enough to kill many people. Longao, why do you have to do this? Ha ha ha, Alliance Master, 3 years ago, you led 8 Vice Alliance Masters to attack the energy shield together and tried to kill me. I've always had a principle. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll pay them back double. Before the 3 of them could speak, Longao continued, Alliance Master, the Alliance and I have always minded our own business. However, Shangguan Yi kept finding trouble with me. I thought that you wouldn't wallow in the mire with him, but I didn't expect that, Tong Tiendi snorted. So what if he was afraid of Longao? The Martial Artists Alliance had a strong foundation and strength. A small Longao was just a little harder to deal with. Longao, 3 years ago, you trespassed into the Alliance and killed many of our disciples. The whole world knew about it. I'd like to ask you, since when did you care about the Alliance? Longao, I've always thought highly of you. It's just that you don't know what's good for you. Don't know what's good for me? Longao laughed. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen someone as shameless as Tong Tiendi. He originally thought that Tong Tiendi was a good person, but now it seemed that Tong Tiendi was just a despicable and shameless person. Tong Tiendi, cut the crap. You didn't kill me 3 years ago. I'll definitely take my revenge. Longao turned around and looked at Ren Tianxing. He smiled and said, do you think that you can rest easy after joining the Martial Artists Alliance? Ren Tianxing, I can tell you clearly that Shangguan Yi is a despicable and shameless person. Once you join the Martial Artists Alliance, you'll die without a burial place in a short time. In fact, Longao didn't need to say this. Ren Tianxing knew what kind of person Shangguan Yi was. Now that he and Shanghai Yi had made such a scene, he believed that once he joined the Martial Artists Alliance, only death would await him. Therefore, from the beginning to the end, he had never thought that he would bring the Blood Soul Valley into the Warrior Alliance. Longao, how dare you trick me? Today, I'll kill you with my own hands. With just you. Longao laughed. His expression showed that he didn't care about them at all. The more he acted like this, the more uncertain Tong Tiendi, Shanghai Yi, and Ren Tianxing felt. Could it be that Longao still had some tricks up his sleeve? Tong Tiendi and the other two didn't attack immediately. They knew that if they couldn't kill Longao now, once Longao escaped, it would be extremely difficult to find another opportunity in the future. Therefore, they couldn't miss this opportunity. P.S. All 10 chapters have been delivered. Little Nine has to wake up early to deliver the goods tomorrow, so he'll be going to bed first. Good night, everyone. If you have votes, you can vote for Little Nine. Little Nine will try his best to continue tomorrow. Chapter 1266. 3 Nirvana Realm Warriors besieging a Man-God Realm Warrior. No one would believe it if word got out. Shangguan Yi took out the crystal ball. As long as she interfered with the spatial fluctuations, it would be difficult for Longao to leave. Shangguan Yi gave Tong Tiendi a look. Her meaning was clear. Longao, I can give you a chance. As long as you follow me back to the Alliance, I can spare your life. Although it could interfere with the spatial fluctuations, Tong Tiendi was still a little worried. What if Longao really left? The lesson from 3 years ago was still vivid in his mind. Would Longao agree? Longao was not a fool. He knew that once he followed Tong Tiendi and the others back to the Martial Artists Alliance, his life would be in the hands of the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao smiled. Tong Tiendi, as the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, you're not a child, are you? Kill. Tong Tiendi already knew what Longao was thinking. Since that was the case, he had nothing to say. Ren Tianxing and Shangguan Yi attacked at the same time. One on the left and one on the right, they surrounded Longao. In the end, Ren Tianxing chose Tong Tiendi. After all, Tong Tiendi's status and strength were obvious. As for whether the Blood Soul Valley would join the Martial Artists Alliance in the future, that was a matter for the future. The power of 2 Nirvana Realm Warriors attacking at the same time was imaginable. Longao did not dare to be careless. Before he appeared, he already knew that Shangguan Yi would definitely use the divine weapon to interfere with the spatial fluctuations. In other words, it was impossible for him to enter the Dragon Seal space. Before reaching the Nirvana realm, there was no difference between spirit focus and man-god. For Longao, the only difference was that his 9-cycle reincarnation technique had successfully broken through the 3rd cycle and formed the reincarnation immortal doppelganger. But could the reincarnation immortal doppelganger fight against 2 Nirvana Realm Warriors? There was no doubt about it. Longao turned and left. With the help of spatial teleportation, Longao's speed was extremely fast. Even if there were 2 of them, it would be difficult for them to catch up to him. No matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than teleportation. Longao, are you leaving? Shangguan Yi sneered. He didn't kill the other party 3 years ago, so today, no matter what happened, he would kill the other party. But in the next moment, the Samsara immortal clone appeared. The reincarnation doppelganger was almost identical to Longao. Even his aura and divine soul were exactly the same. Because of this, neither Ren Tianxing nor Shangguan Yi could sense the difference between the reincarnation doppelganger and Longao. It was because of the reincarnation avatar that Longao dared to show himself. Under the cover of his Samsara doppelganger, Longao teleported away. It was 1 against 2. The reincarnation doppelganger fought against the 2 Nirvana Realm Warriors. In just a few seconds, the reincarnation doppelganger had been hit more than 30 times. If it was an ordinary person, even Longao, he would have died. But what was the result? The reincarnation doppelganger had an immortal soul and his physical body was condensed in the chaotic Dantian. It was impossible for the 2 of them to destroy the reincarnation doppelganger. Longao was very confident about this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let the reincarnation doppelganger act as a cover and left alone. Immortal? They kept attacking Longao, but no matter how they attacked, Longao didn't die. Ren Tianxing and Shangguan Yi were completely dumbfounded. They had never thought that Longao would be immortal. When they recalled that 3 years ago, Longao didn't die even after being attacked by the 4 of them, they were terrified. They didn't continue attacking. Instead, they took 3 steps back and looked coldly at Longao. The 2 of them looked at Tong Tiendi, who was behind them. Until now, the 2 of them still did not know what had happened. Longao's cultivation was right there. He was just a puny deity expert, but his physical defense was a little too abnormal. Could it be that Longao had a fortuitous encounter in the past 3 years? Longao, have you integrated with the origin energy? Tong Tiendi was also shocked. Longao's physical defense was too strong. Tong Tiendi was very confident in his own strength, but he didn't dare to stand still and let the 3 of them attack him continuously. He believed that he would be killed in less than 3 moves. Since that was the case, how could Longao be so strong as to resist the attacks of 2 Nirvana Realm warriors? Unless it was the origin energy. But could a man-god master integrate with the origin energy? Tong Tiendi even thought that if he could have Longao's physical defense, wouldn't he be invincible under the martial Dao pinnacle? What does it have to do with you whether I integrate with the origin energy? The reincarnation avatar's tone was almost exactly the same as Longao's. The only difference was that the reincarnation avatar's face was extremely cold, like a zombie's. Even so, Tong Tiendi and the others still couldn't see through the trick. They believed that no one in the world could see through it, let alone the 3 of them. Because no one would have guessed that Longao would condense a reincarnation avatar. Longao. The reincarnation avatar was clearly impatient. He scolded fiercely, just 3 pieces of trash. You want to keep me here? What a joke. The reincarnation avatar turned around and left, ignoring the 3's attacks. The 3 of them were shocked. From the beginning to the end, the 3 of them didn't know what was going on with Longao. How did Longao's physical defense become so terrifying in just 3 years? Alliance Master. Tong Tiendi waved his hand. He also didn't know what had happened, but he knew that Longao couldn't be kept alive. Otherwise, the Martial Artists Alliance would be in trouble in the future. The 2 of you go and look for Longao quietly. Remember, don't kill him. Longao is very important to me. Ren Tianxing and Shangguan Yi nodded. Just as the 2 of them were about to leave to look for Longao, Tong Tiendi suddenly said, Ren Tianxing, from now on, the Blood Soul Valley will be a subsidiary of the Martial Artists Alliance. As for you, you will be the Alliance's guest elder. Hearing this, Ren Tianxing was overjoyed. However, when he looked at Shangguan Yi, his intention was clear. After all, he and Shanghai Yi had already fallen out. The Martial Artists Alliance was also Shanghai Yi's territory. When the time came, he would be in a very passive position. How could Tong Tiendi not understand Ren Tianxing's intention? He looked at Ren Tianxing and Shanghai Yi and said coldly, from now on, the grudge between the 2 of you is written off. If I find out that you set each other up, I won't show any mercy. I'll kill you without mercy. Shanghai Yi cursed in her heart. However, she still felt relieved. The Alliance Master didn't continue to pursue the matter. It was a blessing in disguise. Ren Tianxing and Shanghai Yi said at the same time, understood, Alliance Master. Chapter 1267. Seeing the medallion in his hand slowly turn dim, Longao was somewhat dumbfounded. Longao was very clear about what the token meant. Ancestor's reincarnated body had fallen. He did not recover from his shock for a long time. He had entered the Blood Soul Valley to find the reincarnated body of his ancestor. But what was the result? He had almost died in order to find the reincarnated body of his ancestor. In the end, everything was in vain. Brother Long, don't be like this. It is very dangerous to enter the path of reincarnation. Longao nodded. Longao knew how terrifying the path of reincarnation was. He did not continue to dwell on it. Longao told Bai Ling about what had happened to him. After listening to him, Bai Ling sighed. Xiling and Long Fu appeared at the same time. They did not know about Longao's reincarnated body either. Long Fu, you don't know either? He shook his head. Long Fu was also surprised. He said, although the 9-cycle reincarnation technique is powerful, it can't produce reincarnated bodies. Even Long Fu did not know. Longao felt a little helpless. In any case, the power of the reincarnated body was obvious. If the reincarnated body had not blocked the 3 Nirvana Realm warriors, it would have been difficult for him to leave the Blood Soul Valley. Violet Spirit thought for a moment before she said, according to my guess, if I'm not mistaken, the 9-cycle samsara technique is one of the reasons why you were able to create a reincarnation clone. However, the main reason is your bloodline and your background. Reincarnation? Now that he thought about it, Longao felt that it was a little strange. It seemed that Xiling's guess was not groundless. Longao, it seems like your 9-cycle reincarnation technique has undergone a transformation. It is many times more powerful than the 9-cycle reincarnation technique that you use to cultivate. If you continue to cultivate it and reach the so-called 9-cycle, it is hard to imagine what will happen to you. Mutated cultivation technique? Longao was a little surprised to hear Xiling's words. The 9-cycle reincarnation technique was already powerful enough, but he did not expect that after it mutated, it would become even more powerful, as Xiling said. That was why Longao was looking forward to the next breakthrough of the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. 2nd cycle, spatial teleportation. 3rd cycle, eternal samsara body. What would happen if he reached the 4th, 5th, or even the 9 cycles? Longao, right now, we can already be sure that you are a member of the reincarnation clan, and your bloodline has been sealed, so your cultivation speed and strength are far more than that. Sister. He waved his hand. I know what to do. Xiling's face was very serious as she continued to say, Longao, although you are from the Lun clan, I want to tell you clearly that although the Lun clan was the strongest clan back then, the Lun clan had a lot of enemies. Once you are discovered by these people, I believe you know the consequences. He nodded. Regarding the meaning of what Purple Spirit said, how could Longao not know? Violet Spirit, I would like to ask, who was the one who sealed the Lun clan back then? Longao had always been curious about this. But the mysterious young man did not want to tell him, so there was nothing he could do about it. Longao did not know why, but he had a feeling that Xiling knew something about the Lun clan. Now is not the time. F***ck, he cursed in his heart. It was the same sentence again. Longao was tired of hearing it. Whether it was Xiling or the mysterious young man, they all meant the same thing. He did not have the right to know. Xiling did not want to say more, so Longao did not ask further. Xiling and Long Fu shrugged helplessly. They returned to the Godslayer sword and the dragon seal space, leaving only Bai Ling brother Long. The enemies of the Lun clan are all from powerful clans. I hope you can improve your strength as soon as possible. Bai Ling, I understand. Longao did not make things difficult for Bai Ling. Then, Longao left the Blood Soul Valley to return to the sect. Now that the reincarnated body of the ancestor had fallen, there was no point in staying in the Blood Soul Valley. As for Ren Tianxing and Shangguan Yi, Longao was very clear that it would be extremely difficult to deal with them under such circumstances. It seemed like he would have to slowly find an opportunity in the future. Phoenix Clan. After 3 years and 5 months, Aoshue still had not given birth. Her belly was still slightly swollen. She did not show any signs of wanting to have a child. Whether it was the phoenixes or the humans, such a phenomenon had never happened before. Even Aoshue felt a little helpless. Looking at her daughter in front of her, Liu Ying smiled and said, Aoshue, I really didn't expect that since you were pregnant, even if you didn't cultivate, your strength would improve so quickly. In just 3 years, you have broken through to the divine realm. At this speed, I believe it won't be long before you can break through to the supreme divine realm. Aoshue did not care about her own strength. At this moment, she only cared about one thing, and that was the child in her belly. Mother, it has been 3 years and 5 months. What is going on with my belly? Liu Ying did not know what was going on. She said helplessly, "Aoshue, your grandfather and I have been discussing this for 3 years. We still do not know what is going on. 3 years and 5 months. If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I would not have believed it. Aoshue, I know what you are worried about. However, you don't have to worry. I can tell you clearly that the child in your belly is not simple. I have already discussed with your grandfather. As long as you can break through to the Nirvana rebirth realm, not only will you be able to reunite with Longao, but your father and I will also be able to be together." Hearing those words, Aoshue did not have the slightest bit of joy because she knew very well what the Nirvana rebirth that her mother spoke of meant. The Nirvana rebirth was already infinitely close to the peak state of the martial way. Even if her cultivation speed was fast, it was still unknown whether she could break through to the Nirvana rebirth realm. Moreover, she did not know how long it would take. "Mother, I will work hard." Liu Ying smiled. She seemed to see hope when she saw her daughter. If it was someone else, she would not believe it. After all, the Nirvana rebirth realm was too difficult. However, her daughter was different. Apart from her physique, she was also pregnant. Her cultivation speed was thousands of times faster than ordinary people. She believed that her daughter would be able to break through to the Nirvana rebirth realm soon. "Aoshue, don't worry. The entire Phoenix clan will help you." Since things had come to this point, Aoshue could only agree. Even if it was not for herself, she had to do it for the child in her belly. Chapter 1268. In the Martial Artists Alliance. The Martial Artists Alliance chose to keep everything about Longao under wraps. In other words, Yu Yin knew nothing about Longao. Otherwise, Yu Yin would have chosen to leave by now. After 3 years of cultivation, Yu Yin had successfully broken through to the peak of the divine realm. She was only 1 step away from the Nirvana realm. However, this step was as difficult as climbing to the sky. Outside the water moon cave, Tong Tiendi and Hades stood quietly. Their faces were filled with anxiety, because both of them knew very well that Yu Yin was only 1 step away from breaking through to the Nirvana realm. "Alliance Master, if Yu Yin really breaks through to the Nirvana realm, do we really have to do this?" Hades was really reluctant. However, the Martial Artists Alliance's Alliance Master had the final say. She couldn't. She nodded. Tong Tiendi's face was filled with determination. He said, "Longao is becoming more and more unpredictable. Now, we and Longao are like fire and water. If we don't get rid of him, he will always be a big problem for the Alliance." Just based on one Longao? Hades didn't want to believe that the little piece of trash from before had become a big problem for the Alliance Master. "Alliance Master, once we control Yu Yin's mind, it will cause great harm to Yu Yin's cultivation in the future." She waved her hand. Tong Tiendi sneered and said, "Of course I know that. However, Yu Yin can't wait for the future." Although Hades already knew what would happen, she still couldn't do anything. She didn't want to hurt Yu Yin at all, even if there was a slight chance. However, she was a member of the Martial Artists Alliance. Between the Alliance and Yu Yin, she would choose the Alliance without hesitation, not Yu Yin. Success. At this time, a powerful chi of heaven and earth was released from Aquamoon Heavenly Cave. Hades and Tong Tiendi were delighted. They looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. "Hades, move out." No matter how unwilling Hades was, he knew that he had to do it. There was no other way. Hades and Tong Tiendi had already disappeared outside the Water Moon Cave. Dragon Peak, inside the main hall of the Dragon Sect. Longao's return caused Dugu Bai and Long Ying to be pleasantly surprised. For 3 whole years, Longao's whereabouts were unknown. The two of them could be said to be extremely worried. "Seventh brother, are you all right?" He shook his head. Longao smiled. How could he not know the worries of the two of them? Longao didn't hide anything. He told her about how he had almost died in the battle with the Blood Soul Valley 3 years ago. After hearing this, the two of them sighed endlessly and were also extremely shocked. The two of them knew very well that if their 7th brother had been careless in the battle with the Blood Soul Valley, he might not have been able to return. Seventh brother, I hope that you can inform us about this in the future. Big brother, don't worry. Not only did I survive this time, but I also made a breakthrough. The two of them helplessly shrugged their shoulders when they saw Longao's unconcerned face. This was because from their point of view, a breakthrough of one level was not worth mentioning when compared to Longao's life. Big brother, what has changed in the sect in the past 3 years? Longao didn't want to continue thinking about this question. How could the two of them not know? Dugubai said, Brother Long, we have communicated with the clans in the Jojo continent. After 3 years of refining, more than 1,000 people have obtained the Divine Dao inheritance. Some of them have already started to break through to the Divine Dao realm. At this rate, I believe that everyone will break through to the Divine Dao realm in less than 3 years. Hearing this, Longao was delighted. More than 1,000 people had broken through to the Divine Dao realm. This was great news for the sect. As for the sect, we haven't made any progress in the past 3 years. Long Hang and Shangguaniye have been suppressing us, but they can't find our whereabouts. They can't do anything to us. Long Hang and Shangguaniye again. Long Ao knew that as long as the two of them weren't eliminated, they would always be a big problem for the sect. However, with his current strength and the power of the sect, it was not the best time to provoke the two of them. However, Long Ao was very clear that once he seized the opportunity, he would not hesitate to attack and kill the two of them. Seventh brother, now that you're back, there's something I want to tell you. Our dragon sect has entered the Tianwu continent. If this continues, it won't work. Long Ao nodded. How could he not know this problem? He said helplessly, Big brother, I believe you should know that I have a lot of people to worry about now. As long as our dragon sect shows up, we'll immediately be besieged by enemies from all directions. At that time, there will be wolves in front and tigers behind. I'm afraid it won't be so easy for us to retreat. Although they knew this, the two of them were still a little unwilling. The Tianwu continent was a place full of temptations. Although there were many dangers here, as long as they could rise, they would be able to occupy a place. At that time, everyone in the Tianwu continent would know about the dragon sect. However, as Long Ao said, the two of them knew that they had to be careful. If something went wrong, the consequences would be unimaginable. At this moment, a servant hurriedly rushed into the main hall. Before the three of them could ask anything, the servant had already knelt on one knee and said anxiously, reporting to Sect Master, Vice Sect Master, this is an invitation from the Martial Arts Alliance. The invitation card of the Martial Artists Alliance. Receiving the invitation card from the servant, Dugubai waved his hand and said curiously, we in the Martial Artists Alliance are like fire and water. It's almost to the point where it's either you die or I die. Even if there's something going on, the Martial Artists Alliance shouldn't have sent us an invitation card. What's going on? Not to mention Dugubai, even Long Ying and Long Ao were a little curious. Why would the Martial Artists Alliance send them an invitation card for no reason? Could it be that the Martial Artists Alliance had nothing better to do? Dugubai opened the invitation card and glanced at it. His face instantly changed. He looked at Long Ao, as if there was something that he couldn't say. Seeing this situation, Long Ao's heart skipped a beat. He had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. He asked, Big brother Dugu, what's going on? He let out a deep sigh. Dugubai said helplessly, the Martial Artists Alliance wants to hold a blind date for Yu Yin. They're inviting all the heroes of the world to go to the Martial Artists Alliance. As long as the winner can become Yu Yin's husband, they can also receive the full support of the Martial Artists Alliance. More importantly, the invitation card has already stated that Yu Yin has a special body. Once they get together, no matter who it is, it will be a great help to them. Long Ying was shocked. At this moment, Long Ao's face was extremely gloomy. The armrest in his right hand instantly turned into powder and scattered on the ground. Chapter 1269. Arena Matchmaking. To put it bluntly, it was the so-called martial arts competition to find a spouse. The Martial Artists Alliance had a huge appetite. They had invited all the young talents in the world to the arena matchmaking. The three of them could even guess that there would be super geniuses on the Earth ranking among those who would go to the Martial Artists Alliance for the arena matchmaking. Sitting in his seat, Longao's face became gloomier and gloomier. He was emitting a cold, murderous aura. The entire hall was filled with a murderous aura that lingered in every corner. Dugu Bai and Long Ying looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. Because until now, no one knew what the Martial Artists Alliance wanted to do. Maybe others did not know, but the two of them knew very well about the relationship between Yu Yin and Longao. Setting up an arena matchmaking for Yu Yin was obviously a show for Longao. What did the Martial Artists Alliance want to do? Seventh brother. He waved his hand. Big brother, I'm fine. I want to be alone. Both of them sighed deeply and shrugged helplessly. Then, they slowly withdrew from the hall. In the entire Great Hall, only Longao alone was left. Martial Artists Alliance, you're playing with fire. Longao was very calm. He knew that the Martial Artists Alliance wanted to use Yu Yin to deal with him. It seemed that Tong Tiendi was really afraid of him. Otherwise, the Martial Artists Alliance would not have done this. Martial Artists Alliance. They announced to the world that they would set up an arena matchmaking for Yu Yin. They invited all the young talents in the world to go to the Martial Artists Alliance. Not many geniuses would go to the Martial Artists Alliance, even if they were extremely beautiful. However, Yu Yin's situation was different. Firstly, Yu Yin's beauty went without saying. Secondly, he was Yu Yin's master, and there was no need to mention his identity. Thirdly, the Martial Artists Alliance had announced to the world that no matter who it was, as long as they could win Yu Yin's favor, they would receive the full support of the Martial Artists Alliance. Fourthly, and most importantly, Yu Yin had a special physique. Once he married Yu Yin, his cultivation would increase rapidly. Because of this, many geniuses rushed to the Martial Artists Alliance, including the most prominent geniuses. Long Bo, who had a long family, was one of them. The Martial Artists Alliance would set up the matchmaking ring 10 days later. Martial Artists Alliance. A huge ring had been set up in the center of the huge square. It was extremely shocking. It seemed that the Martial Artists Alliance attached great importance to the matchmaking in the ring this time. In front of the arena, Tong Tiendi and the 8 Vice Alliance Masters stood in front of the palace. Alliance Master, will we offend Longao by doing this? Tang Hao more or less wanted to help Longao. If it weren't for his identity, he wouldn't want to deal with Longao. Especially because of his granddaughter. I'm doing this to deal with Longao. Tang Hao seemed to want to say something, but Shangguan said first, Tang Hao, Longao has been provoking the Martial Artists Alliance. If he's still alive, the Martial Artists Alliance will lose face. Tang Hao was speechless. Tang Hao knew very well that what Shangguan said was true. The whole world knew that Longao had been provoking the Martial Artists Alliance. If Longao didn't die, the Martial Artists Alliance would lose face. Shangguan is right. I'm setting up the ring this time to deal with Longao. Remember, once Longao enters the Alliance in 10 days, you have to keep him alive no matter what. Otherwise, the Martial Artists Alliance will. Tong Tiendi didn't finish his words, but the meaning was clear. The Martial Artists Alliance made such a big fuss this time to deal with Longao. When the time came, the Martial Artists Alliance would deal with Longao together. If Longao still left, the Martial Artists Alliance could go to hell. The first failure was due to the Martial Artists Alliance's carelessness. What if they failed twice? Alliance Master, 10 days later, if nothing unexpected happens, the other 9 sects of the 10 Directions tripod will come. If we deal with Longao, the other sects like the Heaven and Earth sect, the Long family, and the 5 Elements sect will intervene. What should we do? Tong Tiendi also thought about this. He thought for a while. If nothing unexpected happens, the 5 Elements sect won't come. Regarding this point, Tong Tiendi was still rather confident. This time, the arena was set up for Lin Yuan to find a partner. Even if there were people from the 10 Direction Cauldron, they would all be youngsters. As for the elders of the 5 Elements sect and the Heaven and Earth sect, they would definitely not come. We only have 10 days left. Make the arrangements. This time, I have to make sure nothing goes wrong. There can't be any mistakes. Yes, Alliance Master. Now that things had come to this point, Tang Hao could only sigh deeply in his heart. In the following days, the Martial Artists Alliance made the arrangements secretly. In the whole Tianwu continent, except for a few people, no one knew about the relationship between Longao and Yu Yin. Therefore, no one knew that the Martial Artists Alliance set up the ring to deal with Longao. Everyone knew about the grudge between Longao and the Martial Artists Alliance, but no one would link the two things together. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, the two things were not related at all. In the Warrior Alliance, in a simple and elegant room with a beautiful environment. Looking at Yu Yin, who was in a daze, Hades sighed deeply in his heart. As her master, he should be happy that Yu Yin had broken through to the Nirvana realm. But what happened? Yu Yin's mind had been disturbed. In other words, Yu Yin was no longer the Yu Yin from before. She did not have her own consciousness and was like a walking corpse. After this incident, his disciple was completely crippled. In order to deal with Longao, he sacrificed Yu Yin. Although Tong Tiandi did not say it out loud, Hades knew very well that Tong Tiandi was very afraid of Longao. If she did not see it with her own eyes, she would not have believed it even if she was beaten to death. At this moment, Yu Yin sat quietly by the bed. Her eyes were empty and there was no expression on her face. If Longao saw Yu Yin now, no one knew what he would think of Longao. Yu Yin, Master is sorry. But Master promises you that no matter what happens, Master will protect your life. This is all Master can do. Hades's face was also very pale. Every time she saw Yu Yin, she felt a deep sense of guilt. But it was still the same. Since things had come to this point, she could only try her best to protect Yu Yin's life. In fact, Hades knew very well that whether she could protect Yu Yin in the future was really uncertain. Hades disappeared. In the elegant room, there was only a dazed Yu Yin left. She did not know anything and did not have the slightest consciousness. Chapter 1270. 10 days later. At the Martial Artists Alliance. The Martial Artists Alliance was very lively today. People came and went as if they were going to a market. Just as Heavenly Emperor Tong had guessed, for the sake of Yuan, almost none of the sect masters and elders from the 10 directions came. Those who came this time were all young talents, including those on the Earth list. Almost 40% of them came. If it was any other time, it would have been a fool's dream to gather so many people. But at this moment, in order to get Yu Yin, strictly speaking, in order to get the full support of the Martial Artists Alliance, many talents came to the Martial Artists Alliance. No one knew that the Martial Artists Alliance did this to deal with one person, the master of the Dragon Sect, Longao. In front of the Grand Hall, in the huge square, the arena was full of people. There were only 4 words to describe it: a sea of people. In the crowd, besides the talents and onlookers, there were more disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. At a glance, there were at least tens of thousands of people. There were even divine path warriors here. Almost all the talents who could enter the Earth list were above the Great Emperor realm. The top 30 were all so-called divine path warriors. Look, the Alliance Master is here. At this moment, 9 people suddenly appeared in front of the Grand Hall. They were the Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi, and 8 Vice Alliance Masters, including Tang Hao and Shangguan Yi. This time, the Martial Artists Alliance arranged a blind date in the arena. I believe you all already know. Nonsense. They didn't know we were here, but no one dared to say a word. After all, Tong Tiandi's status and strength were obvious. Without further ado, let's start now. The rules are simple. Anyone can enter the arena. No matter who it is, as long as they can withstand 10 attacks from the 8 elders, they will win. Hearing Tong Tiandi's words, everyone was shocked. Everyone knew what it meant to have 8 deputy leaders of the Martial Artists Alliance. As everyone knew, the 8 Vice Alliance leaders were all Nirvana realm martial artists and could be considered to be standing at the peak of the martial Dao. Was it even possible to withstand 10 moves from the 8 Vice Alliance leaders? Forget about them, even if it was a transcendent deity realm martial artist, they would also be unable to withstand it. Now, everyone finally knew how difficult it was for the Martial Arts Alliance to set up this blind date in the arena. Everyone's expression was extremely ugly. They were all cursing the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiendi, and the 8 deputy leaders in their hearts. But was there any other way? This was a matchmaking arena set up by the Martial Artists Alliance. If they were willing, they could continue. If not, they had to leave immediately. Tong Tiendi smiled. As for the 8 Vice Alliance masters, they looked at each other. I'll go first. Tang Hao smiled. Actually, the strength of the 8 Vice Alliance leaders was there for all to see. Any one of them would not be able to withstand more than 10 moves. Tong Tiendi and the others all smiled. He took a step forward. In the next second, Tang Hao's figure appeared in the huge arena. The matchmaking arena has officially begun. I wonder who would like to come up and have a try. Have a try? How? What a joke. Tang Hao's cultivation had already reached the Nirvana realm. He was only one step away from the Rebirth realm. Even a peak Emperor God Warrior would not be able to withstand 10 moves from Tang Hao. However, everyone felt relieved after thinking about it. If the matchmaking arena was so simple, then the Martial Artists Alliance would not be the Martial Artists Alliance. The more the Martial Artists Alliance acted like this, the more the people around the arena looked forward to the winner. After all, this could directly reflect how much importance the Martial Arts Alliance placed on this blind date in the arena. I'll do it. Longao smiled. Longao had full confidence in his strength. Although he was not a match for a Nirvana Realm Warrior, he believed that he could withstand 10 moves from a Nirvana Realm Warrior. However, the result. Right at this moment, a sudden clap of thunder came from the sky. A terrifying chi of heaven and earth directly descended. Chi of heaven and earth. What did this mean? Everyone's expression changed. The chi of heaven and earth was the unique chi of a Nirvana Realm Warrior. In other words, the warrior who suddenly appeared at this moment was a real Nirvana Realm Warrior. Looking at the spatial fluctuation in the distance, Tong Tiendi and the others all stood up. They already knew who was coming. Again, others might not know, but they knew very well the relationship between Longao and Yu Yin. The Martial Artists Alliance did this to draw Longao here and then deal with Longao. As for whether Longao would come back or not, Tong Tiendi and the others were not sure. After all, how many people in the world could take such a risk for a woman? Longao really came. Tong Tiendi more or less admired this person. Not to mention other things, Longao's courage alone was worthy of their respect. As expected, Longao split the clouds with his palm. His figure had already appeared in the emptiness of the 9th heaven. Stepping on the clouds, he looked down at the Martial Artists Alliance with a cold face. Originally, he had planned to appear only when the Martial Artists Alliance was halfway through the battle. However, he decided to act immediately. Longao did not want these people to sully his Yu Yin. This time, no matter what happened, even if he had to massacre the Martial Artists Alliance, he would not hesitate as long as he could take Yu Yin away. This time, Longao had already made up his mind. If he could not take Yu Yin away, then he would die in the Martial Artists Alliance. In any case, he would not let anyone hurt Yu Yin. Tong Tiendi, Shangguan Iye, I'm coming. Looking at the figure in the emptiness of the 9th heaven, everyone was a little dumbfounded. The Martial Artists Alliance was one of the top 10 forces in the Tianwu continent. Who would dare to provoke the Martial Artists Alliance? Not to mention an individual, even the other 9 super forces would not dare to provoke the Martial Artists Alliance casually. Longao, who do you think you are? How dare you behave so atrociously in the Martial Artists Alliance? Shangguan Iye was extremely surprised. He was really afraid that Longao would not come. Now that Longao was here, with the Martial Artists Alliance's arrangement, Longao would definitely die. Longao? Hearing Shangguan Iye's words, everyone already knew who the person was. It turned out that this was the master of the dragon sect, Longao, the lunatic who broke into the Martial Artists Alliance alone and killed their disciples. Provoking the Martial Artists Alliance was a lunatic. Did Longao come this time to cause trouble for the Martial Artists Alliance? Until now, no one had thought that Longao came to cause trouble for the Martial Artists Alliance because of Yu Yin. Otherwise, who knew what everyone would think? Provoking the Martial Artists Alliance for a woman? Unless there was something wrong with his head. Chapter 1271. Hand over Yu Yin, or I'll kill everyone in the Alliance. Kill everyone in the Alliance. Hearing Longao's arrogant words, many people in the Martial Artists Alliance laughed crazily. Their laughter was full of disdain, contempt, and mockery, but most of them didn't believe him. Tong Tiendi also sneered and said, Longao, I have to admit that your courage is really commendable. But will anyone believe your words? Shangguan Ye said angrily, the Martial Artists Alliance is not a place where you can be so presumptuous. In the next second, Shangguan Ye had already rushed out. Before she arrived, the horrible qi of heaven and earth had already pressed down hard. But in the next moment, Longao also released the qi of heaven and earth. When they collided, Shangguan Ye's body flew back violently, like a kite with a broken string. One move. He defeated Shangguan Ye with one move? Seeing this, everyone was more and more dumbfounded, and their faces were extremely pale. But the rest of the people, while being shocked, were also a little expectant. After all, there were too many legends about Longao. 10 days ago, Longao received the invitation from the Martial Artists Alliance and knew that the Martial Artists Alliance had arranged a blind date in the arena. He already knew that the Martial Artists Alliance did this to deal with him. How could he not go? Longao clearly knew that going to the Martial Artist Alliance this time could be said to be a narrow escape. However, he was very clear that regardless of whether it was a mountain of blades, a sea of flames, or the abyss of hell, he had to go to the Martial Artist Alliance without hesitation for Yu Yin. But Longao didn't act recklessly. Because he was very clear that if he went to the Martial Artists Alliance rashly this time, not only would he not be able to save Yu Yin, but he would also lose his life for nothing. It was precisely because of this. Longao found Long Fu, Xiling, and Bai Ling. He went straight to the point and said, I believe you already know about this. You don't have to persuade me. I have already made up my mind. Now, I just want to ask you one thing. How can I break through to the Nirvana realm in 10 days, no matter the price? Bai Ling felt very uncomfortable, but because of her kindness, Bai Ling could only remain silent. Xiling knew Longao's personality very well. Even if he was furious, he could only hold it in for the time being. As for Long Fu, it didn't matter. Xiling and Long Fu looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. Longao, you should know the consequences of forcibly increasing one's strength. How could Longao not know what the consequences would be? But would he care? If he did, Longao wouldn't have gone to the Martial Artists Alliance. Again, for Yu Yin, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice himself. He waved his hand. Longao's face was resolute, and his voice was even more resolute. He said, I just said it. You don't have to persuade me. He heaved a deep sigh. Long Fu looked at Xiling and said, Miss Xiling, I believe you can do this. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao's heart skipped a beat. At the same time, he felt happy. Longao knew very well that with Long Fu's personality, he wouldn't say anything rashly. It seemed that Xiling had a way to forcibly break through to the Nirvana realm in 10 days. If he didn't break through to the Nirvana realm, even if he went to the Martial Artists Alliance, he would die. Therefore, he had to break through to the Nirvana realm. As for the consequences, Longao couldn't care less. Was death important? In front of the person he loved, nothing was important, even his own life. He nodded helplessly. Xiling looked at Longao, then at Bai Ling. In the end, he said helplessly, Longao, I do have a way to help you reach the Nirvana realm in 10 days. Before Longao could finish, Xiling continued, but Longao, let me tell you one last thing. Once you choose to do this, even I don't know what the consequences will be. It won't be good anyway. You have to be mentally prepared. Here we go again. Longao suppressed his impatience and said calmly, I've already said that I'll take it no matter what. Xiling didn't say anything else since he had already said that. He nodded. Longao, you're only in the deity realm now. If you want to break through to the Nirvana realm from the deity realm in 10 days, there's only one way, and it's the only way. What way? Longao couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't wait any longer. It's very simple. You can forcefully merge with my sisters and my sword chi of origin. I believe that with your talent and potential, you should be able to reach the Nirvana realm by force. However, it can only last for 6 hours. Once it's over, you'll be devoured by the sword chi of origin. Even the two of us can't do anything about it. Longao was very curious. Before Longao could ask, Xiling seemed to have guessed it. He said, Longao, although you're borrowing our sword chi of origin, the sword chi left in your body won't be under our control after the backlash. Do you understand? I see. 10 days later, in front of the Martial Artists Alliance's main hall, Longao stood on the clouds in the sky. He no longer cared about anything else. Even though he knew that forcefully increasing his strength would lead to very serious consequences, for Yu Yin, Longao no longer cared about anything else. Longao coldly looked down at everyone below. His voice was extremely cold. He said, Tong Tiendi, I'll say it one last time. Hand over Yu Yin, or I'll massacre the Martial Artists Alliance. If Longao had said this before, everyone would have looked down on him. However, the scene of Longao forcing Shanghai Iya back with a single strike was still vivid in their minds. Could it be that Longao's cultivation had already reached the Nirvana realm? Everyone knew that Shanghai Iya's cultivation had already broken through to the Nirvana realm. Only through Nirvana rebirth could he defeat her in a single strike. Tong Tiendi and the others trembled violently. Could it be that Longao had used some kind of secret technique? After all, it was impossible for Longao to break through to the Nirvana realm from the deity realm in such a short amount of time. He could only use a secret technique. Although he could break through in a short amount of time, the backlash would be extremely terrifying. With such a large increase in strength, the backlash would probably kill him directly. Thinking of this, Tong Tiendi and the others were rather moved. They never thought that Longao would be willing to risk his life for a woman. Such courage was worthy of everyone's respect. Not only Tong Tiendi and the others, but even the people around the ring were moved when they saw this. Now that things had developed to this point, everyone knew that Longao had not only come to provoke the Martial Artists Alliance, but also for a woman. And this woman was the main character of this matchmaking session, the genius disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance, Yu Yin. Chapter 1272. What could a person who broke through the Nirvana realm with a secret technique do? Even so, Tong Tiendi and the others still did not take Longao seriously. In their opinion, Longao was just breaking through by force. They believed that he would not be able to last long. Moreover, there were 10 Nirvana realm warriors here. Why would they be afraid of a small Longao? They could not embarrass themselves in front of all the young talents in the world. Longao, take Yu Yin away if you can. But you don't have the chance. Tong Tiendi waved his hand and the 9 people behind him rushed out. The 8 deputy leaders, including Tang Hao and Shangguan Iya, who had just been defeated by a single move, as well as Ren Tianxing, who had become a subordinate of the Martial Artists Alliance. A total of 9 Nirvana realm warriors. 9 against 1. Seeing this, all the outsiders cursed in their hearts. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen anyone as shameless as the Martial Artists Alliance. They were shameless to the extreme. Everyone scattered and hid in the dark to watch. What a joke. In a battle between Nirvana realm warriors, just the ripples of their auras could easily destroy everyone around. Looking at Longao, who was standing on the clouds in the sky, Longbo's face turned ugly. Although he had guessed that Longao must have used a secret technique, Longao's actions were also a slap to the Long family's face. Everyone knew. Longao was a disciple of the Long family and was only a disciple of a 6th-class family. Now, not only did he create the dragon sect, but he was also arrogant everywhere. "Mph, the Martial Artists Alliance will kill you to remove a threat to my Long family." Since things had come to this point, Longbow did not care about the Dragon Clan's life. He only wanted to kill Longao. In the sky. The battle between the 10 Nirvana Realm warriors could be said to be the most powerful battle in the history of the Sky Martial continent. Longao, surrender. Looking at the youth in front of him, Tang Hao sighed deeply in his heart. If such a talent could be recruited to the Alliance, it would definitely be beneficial to the Alliance. It was all Shangguan Yi's fault. If it weren't for the grudge between Shangguan Yi and Longao, Longao might have been a member of the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao was more or less grateful to Tang Hao and had a good impression of him. However, the grudge between him and the Martial Artists Alliance had reached a point where one of them had to die. Once he surrendered, there would only be one outcome, which was to be killed by the Martial Artists Alliance. If you want to fight, then let's fight. At this moment, Longao stood in the sky. He was dressed in black and his blood-red hair danced wildly. Who else could it be? Even though he was fighting against 9 people, Longao did not show the slightest fear. It would be a lie to say that he was not moved. Even Shangguan Yi felt a deep sense of conflict when she looked at the youth in front of her. The scene of her being pushed back by one move was still vivid in her mind. Was he really so powerful? Until now, Shangguan Yi was still unwilling to believe it. Tang Hao, you have to remember that you are the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. With cold eyes, Shangguan Yi was the first to rush out. Tang Hao did not continue to talk nonsense and also shot out. The 9 Nirvana Realm warriors were very fast. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived in front of Longao. Among the 9 people, only Ren Tianxing's cultivation had reached the Rebirth Realm. As for the 8 deputy chiefs, 6 of them had reached the peak of the Nirvana Realm, but they were still one step away. Ha ha ha, good timing. With the help of Bai Ling and Xiling's sword Qi origin, Longao forcefully raised his cultivation from the Man-God Realm to the Nirvana Rebirth Realm in just 10 days. Longao, who did not care about the consequences, was like a mad lion as he fought against the 9 people in a frenzy. In the void of the 9 heavens, 10 phantoms dashed about chaotically, exchanging blows back and forth. It was simply impossible to see who was who. Under the 9 heavens, everyone was amazed and they were all full of admiration for Longao. 9 great Nirvana Realm martial artists. Even if it was a Nirvana Realm martial artist who had been reborn, it was believed that he would not dare to fight one against 9. However, Longao did not hesitate. It was still the same sentence. Regardless of whether Longao lived or died in this battle, just this courage alone was enough to make everyone respect him. In the sky, the chi of heaven and earth collided. Fighting 1 against 9, even Longao was losing ground. He wanted to end the battle quickly and kill as many as he could. Longao had come prepared to die at any time. Since that was the case, even if he killed one of them, it would be worth it. Self-created martial technique, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. Longao had created Sorrow of Heaven and Earth based on the vision of heaven and earth. Although it was powerful, it was not enough to kill opponents of a higher level. However, as he forcefully made a breakthrough in his cultivation, Longao had a feeling that his self-created Sorrow of Heaven and Earth must be very powerful. He could use this opportunity to test it out. With Longao as the center, the surroundings began to spin wildly. A sky-reaching tornado appeared and swept everyone around. In the blink of an eye, the 9 Nirvana Realm warriors were swept in. Even for the people below, the ordinary warriors were all sucked in. Very few could escape. As for the warriors above the Great Emperor Realm, they relied on their powerful strength to barely escape the tornado's engulfment. It was terrifying. Was this Longao's strength? Everyone, including Longbow, swallowed their saliva fiercely because they never thought that Longao's strength would be so strong. If they didn't personally experience it, even if they were told, they wouldn't choose to believe it. No one dared to stay in the square. They immediately left as far as they could. Anyway, with their eyesight, they could see the situation of the battle. There was no need for them to stay. If they were caught in the crossfire, Who could they find to reason with? In a short while, only a few people were left in the crowd. Looking at the situation, Tong Tiandi's face became gloomier. He did not expect Longao to be so powerful. The main reason why Tong Tiendi was not willing to take action was because he did not have full confidence in killing Longao. He did not know Longao's background, so he let the 9 of them take the lead to test Longao's strength. Once Longao saw a flaw or grasped the opportunity, he believed that Tong Tiendi would not hesitate to take action. The 9 of them were also shocked when they were swept in by the tornado. However, the 9 of them were very confident. If they joined forces, even the Alliance Master would not dare to fight them head-on. Longao, today I'm going to tear you into pieces. You! Longao sneered. The god-slaying sword had already appeared in his hand. Because he had fused 2 Genling's origin sword chi and forcibly raised his Nirvana realm strength, in this situation, Longao's strongest point was his sword Dao. P.S. I just came back from delivering goods. I got home at 5 o'clock. I first wrote a chapter, then went to eat and drink. After that, I will immediately write. Everyone, please forgive me. I need to support my family. Thank you for your tips and tickets. Chapter 1273. God-Slaying Sword Technique. Longao used spatial teleportation to change his body constantly. The 9 of them were dumbfounded. When Longao was only in the man-god realm, his spatial teleportation was already extremely fast, let alone now. His strength had broken through the Nirvana realm and his speed had increased by dozens of times. What did this mean? Crack. The god-slaying sword in Longao's hand shot out countless sword chi. While the 9 of them were not paying attention, a sword chi had already slashed through a Nirvana realm martial artist. The sword chi swallowed the martial artist along with his divine soul. Under such circumstances, Longao had no intention of refining a soul slave or corpse slave. He only had one goal, and that was to kill a Nirvana realm martial artist no matter what method he used. Dead. Before the others could react to the death of a deputy chief, Longao's figure had already appeared behind the other deputy chief. He sneered in his heart. With another crack, the other deputy chief was also slashed by a sword chi and his divine soul was swallowed by the sword chi. In just a few seconds, the 2 Vice Alliance leaders had been killed. At this rate, how long could the remaining 7 Vice Alliance leaders last? The 7 of them looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. They did not continue to attack Longao. Instead, the 7 of them attacked the black tornado together. Rumble. After a loud noise, the huge tornado instantly broke apart. The 7 of them scattered in all directions with endless shock. The 7 of them were frightened to the extreme. The 7 of them had already guessed that Longao must have used a secret technique to possess the strength of the Nirvana realm. They thought that killing Longao would be child's play if the 9 of them worked together. But what was the final result? In less than 3 minutes, 2 Nirvana realm martial artists had been killed. What kind of concept was this? The 7 of them retreated to Tong Tiendi's side with fear written all over their faces. Chief. He waved his hand. There was no need for the 7 of them to say anything. Tong Tiendi naturally knew what had happened. Longao was able to kill 2 deputy chief in a few minutes when the 9 of them worked together. This in itself explained everything. He sneered. Tong Tiendi's face was filled with contempt as he mocked, Longao, let's not beat around the bush. I believe that the strength you displayed today was forcefully raised. If my guess is correct, you won't be able to hold on for long. So what? What does it have to do with you? He was stunned by Longao's words. Tong Tiendi knew that his guess was right. After thinking about it, he felt relieved. After all, Longao dared to come here this time, so he must have disregarded his life and death. Thinking of this, Tong Tiendi's face became increasingly gloomy. If it was the Longao of the past, he could have easily killed him, but what was the result? No matter what method Longao used, Longao's cultivation had officially broken through to the Nirvana realm. The Martial Artists Alliance could not ignore him. If Longao really went crazy, then even if the Martial Artists Alliance could kill Longao, It would be a lose-lose situation for both sides. Could it be that Longao came here with no intention of leaving? If that was the case, then they were in big trouble. 6 hours was more than enough. Tong Tiendi, hand over Yu Yin, and the grudge between you and me will be written off. Otherwise, I will massacre the alliance. At that time, even if I die, I will drag the martial artists alliance down with me. No one doubted Longao's words. A person who dared to create the martial artists alliance by himself and kill their disciples, if he was not crazy, what was he? However, things had already come to this point. Could it be that the martial artists alliance would really choose to compromise? If that was the case, then once this matter spread out, the martial artists alliance would lose face. It was believed that everyone in the world would laugh at the martial artists alliance. That was exactly the case. Tong Tiendi and the others knew very well that no matter what happened, Longao could not leave the martial artists alliance alive. Kill. Tong Tiendi gave the order, but no one dared to make a move. After all, the previous lesson was still vivid in their minds. Longao was able to kill 2 deputy leaders in a short 3 minutes, which meant that he had the strength to kill them. Looking at the 7 people beside him, Tong Tiendi wanted to go up and slap each of them. He snorted coldly. The 7 people were shocked. They had no choice but to bite the bullet and rush out again. This time, Tong Tiendi attacked personally. The 8 of them worked together. After just 3 moves, Longao was forced to retreat. This was the first time he fought with Tong Tiendi. Longao was a little surprised. No wonder Tong Tiendi was the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance and a superfigure in the top 10 of the Heaven ranking. Although Tong Tiendi was also a Nirvana reborn martial artist, he was still a few times stronger than Longao. Longao knew that with his current strength, even if he forcefully broke through the Nirvana reborn, it would be difficult for him to defeat Tong Tiendi. Was he really going to die in the Martial Artists Alliance this time? If that's the case, then don't blame me for being merciless. I'll massacre the alliance. Longao took 3 steps back. Then, dragon roars could be heard continuously. One dragon roar after another. Before anyone could react, giant dragons had already appeared in the void of the Martial Arts Alliance. Giant dragons covered the sky. At a glance, there were giant dragons everywhere. There were at least 500 of them, and all of them were divine dragons. When Longao came to the Martial Art Alliance this time, he already knew that he would most likely meet with misfortune. He would not be able to force a bloodbath in the Martial Art Alliance. As such, he directly brought 500 divine dragon corpse slaves. Not only that, but the 10 elders of the 9 Netherbird clan also appeared in front of the main hall. 500 divine dragon corpse slaves were equivalent to 500 supreme Dao martial artists. 10 elder corpse slaves were equivalent to 10 supreme Dao martial artists. Even if they were not as strong as the Martial Artists Alliance, they were all immortal. Unless there was a great disparity in strength, no one could destroy these corpse slaves. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. All the corpse slaves rushed out and swarmed into the Martial Artists Alliance. In just a few seconds, screams came from all directions of the Martial Artists Alliance, resounding between heaven and earth. Hearing the screams, Tong Tiendi and the others were furious. Longao was hurting the foundation of the Martial Artists Alliance. With 500 divine dragons rushing out, the Martial Artists Alliance would suffer heavy losses in no time. At that time, the Martial Artists Alliance would fall behind the other 9 super forces. Longao, I'm going to tear you into pieces. With a furious roar, Tong Tiendi and the others attacked Longao faster and faster. After 30 moves, Longao was hit. His body flew out like a kite with a broken string. In the air, Longao stopped abruptly. However, he spat out blood. His face was pale, and his body was on the verge of collapse. Chapter 1274. With Tong Tiendi's strength, Longao knew very well that it was impossible for him to kill Tong Tiendi and the others. He would not give up until he took Yu Yin away. Screams continued to rise and fall. In just a few minutes, at least 1,000 people from the Martial Artists Alliance were slaughtered. At this rate, even with the strength of the Martial Artists Alliance, the Martial Artists Alliance would be wiped out in a day at most. They were coming aggressively. The 7 of you, stop them. Alliance Master, where's Longao? Leave him to me. After the short fight just now, Tong Tiendi had figured out Longao's strength. Although he had forcefully broken through to the Nirvana Rebirth realm, his true strength was still far from his own. Tong Tiendi had full confidence that even if it was just one person, it was also enough to deal with Longao. The 7 of them nodded and headed toward the Martial Artists Alliance. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared without a trace. The 7 of them were very clear. Longao had come prepared this time. He had brought 500 divine dragons and 10 supreme Dao martial artists. If this continued, even if the Martial Artists Alliance could defeat him, they would suffer heavy losses. The strength of the 7 of them was needless to say. Nirvana martial artists. The 7 of them were very confident that they could defeat all the divine dragons. They split into 2 groups. Tong Tiendi would deal with Longao, while the 7 Nirvana martial artists would deal with the 500 divine dragons and 10 supreme Dao martial artists. At this point, Longao could no longer care about the 500 divine dragon corpse slaves and the 10 elder corpse slaves. Although corpse slaves were known to be immortal, it also depended on the situation. The 7 of them were Nirvana martial artists. They definitely had the strength to destroy the corpse slaves. In Longao's opinion, all the corpse slaves added together were nothing in front of Yu Yin. Yu Yin. Longao didn't really want to fight to the death with the Martial Artists Alliance. The reason he came to the Martial Artists Alliance this time was to take Yu Yin away. As for the grudge between him and the Martial Artists Alliance, he would deal with it later. The Martial Artists Alliance was able to become one of the top 10 forces because of its strength and background. Gradually, Longao's eyes began to turn red. A cold and bloody aura emanated from his body, which instantly covered the entire Martial Artists Alliance. In order to save Yu Yin, Longao was defeated by Tong Tiendi. In his anxiousness, he was taken advantage of by the power of the blood pool. Master, wake up quickly. In the dragon seal space. Long Fu was shocked when he felt the entire blood pool tremble violently. Others might not know what had happened, but how could Long Fu not know? His master had already been controlled by the blood pool once. If he had not borrowed external power the second time, he believed that his master would have already become the blood pool's killing tool. But this time, once the blood pool successfully invaded Master's body, the consequences would be unimaginable. In the Godslayer sword, Bai Ling and Xiling didn't know what was going on. The 2 Genling were extremely depressed. Because no matter what kind of danger they encountered, Longao would seal the Godslayer sword immediately, not giving them any chance to come out. The 2 Genling couldn't do anything. After all, Longao had gradually merged with the Godslayer sword. What others couldn't do, Longao could do easily. There were only 2 ways to break the seal of the Godslayer sword by force. The first way was for the 2 of them to recover their original strength. If they worked together, they would definitely be able to break the seal of the Godslayer sword. The second way was for Longao to die. The seal of the Godslayer sword would be much weaker. With the 2 Genling working together, they would still be able to break the seal of the Godslayer sword. In fact, there was a third way, and that was for Longao to break the seal of the Godslayer sword. But was that possible? If it was possible, Longao wouldn't have to seal the 2 Genling by force. As for Long Fu's words, Longao acted as if he didn't hear a thing. At this moment, Longao's eyes were completely red. The bloody aura emitted from his body became more and more terrifying. Feeling the sudden bloody aura, Tong Tiendi's face became more and more ugly. He didn't know what was happening to Longao. Could it be because of the backlash? Other than this, Tong Tiendi really couldn't think of what was happening to Longao at this moment. If that was the case, then he didn't even need to do anything. He believed that Longao would die on his own. But what was the result? Kill. Longao seemed to have lost his mind. His entire body was occupied by the blood pool. The power of the blood pool had already entered Longao's body. The invasion was successful. From the beginning to the end, Longao didn't know what was happening. Longao never thought that he would be taken advantage of by the blood pool in the end. In Longao's opinion, after forcefully raising his nirvana realm for 6 hours, the backlash would be the sword essence and not the blood pool. If Longao knew about this in advance, he didn't know if this would happen. No matter what, it was too late to say anything now. Longao's aura continued to multiply, becoming more and more powerful. Originally, Tong Tiendi thought that Longao would die from the backlash, but in the end, not only did Longao not die from the backlash, his aura became even more powerful. Could it be that Longao's strength would become even more powerful? Tong Tiendi was very afraid of Longao. Although he knew that Longao would definitely die from the backlash, what would he do if Longao's strength really surpassed his during this period of time? What would happen to the martial artists' alliance? There was no time to lose. Tong Tiendi definitely didn't want to hesitate. He rushed out once again, clenched his palms into fists, and fiercely smashed them out. The corner of Tong Tiendi's mouth slowly curled into a sneer. Above Longao's head, a ball of blood suddenly appeared and crazily spun. In just a few seconds, Longao's strength had directly tripled, and he also fiercely smashed his fist out. When the two fists collided, a terrifying shockwave burst out. With Tong Tiendi's strength, even if Longao's strength was tripled, he might not be a match for him. However, Longao's situation was completely different. The power of the blood pool had invaded his body. In other words, Longao could be considered to have borrowed 1% of the blood pool's power. But even so, Longao's fist had directly sent Tong Tiendi flying. One fist was simply unable to kill Tong Tiendi. Forcibly stopping himself, Tong Tiendi's expression was extremely ugly. This was because he really couldn't understand how Longao's strength could grow to such an extent in just a few seconds. If he didn't personally experience it, he would find it hard to believe. Longao. Kill. After being invaded by the blood pool, Longao was completely unconscious. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to kill. No matter who it was, he would kill. At this moment, not to mention Tong Tiendi, even if Longao's family members were standing in front of him, he wouldn't hesitate to attack. It was as if he wouldn't even recognize his own family. This was the power of the blood pool. This was the terror of the blood pool. P.S. Tomorrow is the climax of the plot. Chapter 1275. At this moment, there was only one word: kill. Martial Artists Alliance. Countless screams came from all directions. Every scream represented the death of a Martial Artists Alliance disciple. But now, Tong Tiendi couldn't care less about the lives of his disciples. Shangguan Iye, Tang Hao, and Ren Tianxing attacked the 500 Divine Dragon Corpse slaves and the 10 Great Corpse slaves crazily. Based on the strength of the 7 of them, it was almost a matter of minutes for them to completely destroy the corpse slaves. But the result? Whether it was the Divine Dragon Corpse slaves or the 10 Great Elder Corpse slaves, they didn't fight the 7 of them head-on. They killed the disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance and left directly. The corpse slaves were very fast and scattered. It was very difficult for the 7 of them to take care of both sides simultaneously. What should we do? The other 6 of them knew Tang Hao's intention very well. The other party didn't fight them head-on at all. At this rate, the Martial Artists Alliance would be completely destroyed in no time. The 7 of us can only focus on one place. If we do that, I'm afraid we'll have to sacrifice a lot of people. If there were other ways, the 7 of them wouldn't do this. Indecisiveness will only lead to trouble. The 7 of them understood this very well. As a result, the 7 of them shot towards the Divine Dragon Corpse slaves. With their strength and the suppression of heaven and earth, they surrounded and attacked the 5 Divine Dragon Corpse slaves. With such a great disparity in strength, the 5 Divine Dragon Corpse slaves were turned into ashes in just a few seconds. The 7 of them were overjoyed. Without any hesitation, they all rushed towards the remaining Divine Dragon Corpse slaves. In the 9th heaven, Longao stood on the clouds and looked coldly at Tong Tiendi in front of him. At this moment, Longao had been completely invaded by the blood pool. He had lost all consciousness and was just a killing tool. Kill. Feeling the bloody stench coming from his opponent, Tong Tiandi's face became more and more pale. He also became more and more fearful. Longao. Before Tong Tiendi could finish his words, a terrifying bloody sword aura shot towards him. He was startled. Tong Tiendi did not expect that the other party would fight without giving him any time to prepare. As he dodged repeatedly, he was almost hit by the sword chi. What terrifying strength! Until now, Tong Tiendi still couldn't figure out how the other party had done it. In just a few seconds, the other party's strength seemed to have increased threefold. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. Longao had already been corroded by the blood pool, and there was only one word in his heart: kill. Longao's entire body dashed out. His speed was so fast that even Tong Tiendi was shocked. Not daring to continue fighting, he immediately turned around and fled. Would Longao let Tong Tiendi off? Longao's current speed was already extremely fast. Moreover, he had the help of spatial teleportation. After a few teleportations, Longao's body was already in front of Tong Tiendi. A cruel smile appeared on his face, as if the target in front of him was already his prey. Go to hell! Just as he finished speaking, a terrifying bloody aura suddenly appeared above Longao's head. In an instant, it enveloped the entire area. No matter who it was, everyone who was fighting stopped and stared blankly at Longao, who was standing in the sky. Dressed in black, with a head of blood-red hair that danced wantonly, and a pair of bloodshot eyes that reflected a cold, icy light. At this moment, Longao was like the god of death that had descended. Above Longao's head, there was a huge pool of blood that rolled in and out like a vast ocean. What was going on? Looking at the scene in front of them, everyone was dumbfounded. Even Tong Tiendi was shocked. Who exactly was Longao? More than 400 Divine Dragon Corps slaves and 10 Elder Corps slaves all disappeared and returned to the Dragon Seal space. As for the people from the Martial Artists Alliance, none of them dared to move. They didn't know why, but everyone had a strange feeling that if they moved, they would be killed by the bloody aura. Under such circumstances, who would dare to move? Seeing that all the corpse slaves had disappeared, the 7 of them returned to Tong Tiendi's side. 8 Nirvana Realm martial artists released a powerful aura of heaven and earth at the same time. Under the layers, the power was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. The intention of the 8 of them was very simple. They wanted to borrow the power of the 8 of them to resist the bloody aura released by Longao. The 8 of them were very confident. But what was the result? The 8 of them did not expect that the aura of heaven and earth that they released together would be swallowed by the bloody aura in an instant. They did not even have the chance to react. What was going on? The 8 of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. This situation had never happened before. Alliance leader, what should we do now? Shangguan Ye and the others were terrified to the extreme, because they could clearly sense the horrifying power that was being emitted from the opponent's body. It was truly abnormal. Not to mention one person, even if 8 of them joined hands, they still wouldn't be a match for the opponent. The 8 of them knew very well that Longao must have used some kind of secret technique. The backlash that would come later would not be something that Longao could resist. But in the current situation, no matter what kind of backlash Longao would suffer in the future, what should the Martial Artists Alliance do now? The powerful strength that Longao had displayed had already explained everything. He was strong enough to defeat the Martial Artists Alliance. If this continued, the Martial Artists Alliance would definitely be destroyed. From then on, there would be no Martial Artists Alliance in the Tianwu continent. The 7 of them could not wait. After all, they were the vice-alliance leaders of the Martial Artists Alliance. They could not leave alone. If Longao died, the Martial Artists Alliance would definitely not let them go. Moreover, they did not want to see the Martial Artists Alliance destroyed. What should they do? Tong Tiendi's mind was spinning rapidly. Longao's strength was not something that they could fight against. What should they do? After thinking for a while, Tong Tiendi could not think of a good way to deal with Longao. Alliance leader, why don't we invite the old ancestor? Tong Tiendi waved his hand. How could he not want to invite the old ancestor? Back then, the old ancestor had made a rule that no one was to disturb him no matter what happened. Others might not know, but how could he not know? All of you, go to hell. Longao did not want to waste any more time. The blood pool above his head was already moving towards the 8 of them. At the same time, Longao's body also rushed out. The 8 of them were done for. This was something that everyone could guess. After all, Longao's strength had reached an abnormal level. But what was the result? Longao's body, which had just rushed out, bounced back. Even the blood pool had disappeared. Chapter 1276. Seeing Longao flying back, Tong Tiendi and the others were overjoyed. You're too presumptuous. The Martial Artists Alliance is not a place for you to be presumptuous. An old and majestic voice was heard. At this moment, Tong Tiendi, Shanghai Iya, and the other disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance were all pleasantly surprised when they heard the old and majestic voice. Without any warning, everyone, including the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiendi, knelt down toward the sky. Because at that moment, an old man appeared in front of Longao in the 9 heavens. He wore a grey robe and had 3 long strands of beard. He gave people a feeling of immortality. Greetings, ancestor. Countless disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance shouted in unison. Their faces were full of respect. The current Longao had already woken up. Looking at the old man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Longao already knew what had just happened. Until now, he still had some lingering fear. This did not mean that he was afraid of the old man in front of him, but he was afraid of the corrosion of the blood pool. Longao did not expect that he would be devoured by the blood pool. Fortunately, the old man appeared in time. Otherwise, he would have been devoured by the blood pool. The consequences would be unimaginable. Who are you? Tong Zun, from the Martial Artists Alliance. Tong Zun? The old man in front of him was Tong Zun? Longao was not unfamiliar with the name Tong Zun. Most likely, no one in the entire Tianwu continent would be unfamiliar with the name. Tong Zun was the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance. He was also the founder of the Martial Artists Alliance. He established the Martial Artists Alliance and led the Martial Artists Alliance to become one of the top 10 martial artists. It was not hard to imagine how powerful Tong Zun was. Tong Zun was a super existence comparable to the 5 Elements Patriarch. Tong Zun was not dead. Longao also didn't expect that the old ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Zun, hadn't died. Instead, he had appeared in front of him. It seemed that the so-called Tianwu continent wasn't as simple as it seemed. Senior Tong, thank you. Thank you. Longao thanked the ancestor. Hearing Longao's words, everyone below was completely dumbfounded. None of them knew what was going on. Just now, the old ancestor had clearly repelled Longao. Longao should have been furious, but what was the result? Thank you, Longao said. In the distance, everyone was shocked to see Tong Zun, the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, appear. After all, everyone knew what Tong Zun's appearance meant. Tianwu continent. Other than the clairvoyant master and the heavenly Tao, Tong Zun was one of the strongest people. Everyone knew that Tong Zun had fallen. Not only had Tong Zun, the old ancestor of the Martial Art Alliance, fallen, but all the old ancestors of the 10 forces had fallen. Longbo looked at Longao and Tong Zun in the 9 heavens. His heart was in turmoil. The ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance was not dead. He was even forced out by Longao. Was it a good thing? Or a bad thing? Longbo didn't stay any longer. He immediately turned around and prepared to tell his father about this. Longao's life was no longer important to him. What was important was that he had to send the news that Tong Zun was still alive back to the Long clan as soon as possible. In the 9 heavens. Looking at the young man in front of him, Tong Zun seemed to be surprised. He asked, "Thank me for what?" Senior Tong, I was devoured by the blood pool. If you hadn't appeared in time, I'm afraid I would have become a killing machine. Longao was still afraid of Tong Zun. After all, Tong Zun was a legend. Longao was almost certain that Tong Zun's strength was much stronger than Tong Tiandi's. He had just been devoured by the blood pool. His strength had skyrocketed. Even if Tong Tiendi and the other four joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for him. However, Tong Zun defeated the blood pool's devouring strength with just one move. One could only imagine how terrifying Tong Zun's strength was. However, no matter what happened, he had to take Yu Yin away from the Martial Artists Alliance. Even if Tong Zun, the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, was here, he wouldn't change his mind. It's okay. I like to help people. Tong Zun's face darkened. He said coldly, Longao, do you know where this is? Martial Artists Alliance. Nonsense, Tong Zun cursed in his heart. Why did he ask when he already knew the answer? It was his first time seeing such a shameless person. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen someone as shameless as Tong Zun. So you know that this is the Martial Artists Alliance. If that's the case, do you know the consequences of being so presumptuous here? So what if I know? So what if I don't know? Everyone's expression changed when they heard Longao's words. No one had expected that Longao would dare to talk back to the ancestor. Shanghai Ye shouted angrily, Longao, who do you think you are? How dare you? Before Shanghai Ye could finish his words, a slap was heard. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw Shanghai Ye being slapped away. No one knew why Tong Zun would slap Shanghai Ye away for no reason. Even Shanghai Ye could not believe it. Shanghai Ye fell to the ground with a thud. He struggled to get up and endured the pain in his body. His face was pale and his body was on the verge of collapsing. However, Shanghai Ye did not dare to say anything. After all, the person who had just slapped him away was the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance. He was a person that no one dared to offend. Useless trash. The Martial Artists Alliance is being so presumptuous because of a piece of trash. You all deserve to die. Everyone, including Tong Tiendi, lowered their heads in shame. Just as Tong Zun had said, the Martial Artists Alliance was one of the 10 great forces. It was very embarrassing that Longao had treated the Martial Artists Alliance this way. At the same time, everyone was extremely worried. If anyone else had said such a thing, they would be seeking death. However, Tong Zun was different. In the Martial Artists Alliance, no one dared to go against Tong Zun. Even if you were slapped to death, no one would stand up for you, including Tong Tiendi. Longao, leave one of your arms and one of your legs. Cripple your strength. Then you can get out of here. If they did not kill Longao, Tong Tiendi and the others were very anxious. However, after thinking about it, they felt relieved. After all, Longao's arms and legs were chopped off. His strength was crippled. He was basically a cripple. Even if he was left alive, he would not be of much use. No one doubted Tong Zun's strength and dignity. After all, Tong Zun's status and strength were obvious. Even Tong Tiendi was like a child in front of Tong Zun, not to mention Longao. Longao had just witnessed Tong Zun's strength. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. However, did he really want to do that? P.S. 10 chapters will be released tomorrow. Xiao Ju will stay up late tonight. Chapter 1277. Longao laughed. Strictly speaking, Longao was amused by Tong Zun's words. Tong Zun, are you out of your mind? F***ck hearing Longao openly insulting the old ancestor, the people from all directions all cursed angrily. Tong Zun waved his hand. Tong Zun was not angry at all. Instead, he laughed. I'm very impressed by your courage. As soon as he finished speaking, Tong Zun disappeared. It was definitely not teleportation. Longao was very clear that the reason why Tong Zun was able to teleport was because Tong Zun's strength was too strong and his speed was extremely fast. Tong Zun was shocked. Before Longao could react, his body had already been ruthlessly smashed out. Tong Zun did not use all of his strength in that punch. Otherwise, Longao's bones would have been shattered even if he was not smashed to death. That was Tong Zun's strength. Everyone held their breaths and stared blankly at the 9 heavens when they saw the powerful strength displayed by the old ancestor. With Tong Zun's strength, Longao would definitely die. That was the thought that popped into everyone's mind. Longao, as long as you're willing to pledge allegiance to the Martial Artists Alliance, I'll give you a chance. I'll spare your life and let you be our lackey. Damn it. Longao spat out a mouthful of blood. If not for his strong willpower, he would have collapsed. Tong Zun's strength was unfathomable. They were both in the Nirvana realm, but the difference between them was like heaven and earth. Longao felt like he was a child standing in front of an adult when he stood in front of Tong Zun. Very good. Very good. In the next second, Tong Zun disappeared again. His speed was even faster than before. Tong Zun could not even see his shadow. This time, Longao was prepared. Before Tong Zun could move, Longao had already disappeared from where he was with teleportation. Since then, Tong Zun's fists struck empty air. This time, Tong Zun wasn't the only one who was stunned. Everyone else was dumbfounded. Even with Tong Zun's speed and strength, the punch didn't hit its target. Was that even possible? Many people rubbed their eyes dramatically, thinking that they had seen wrongly. However, the truth was right in front of them. When everyone recognized the truth, their overestimation of Longao increased by another level. Ha ha ha. Looking at the empty space in front of him, Tong Zun suddenly laughed crazily. Behind Tong Zun, Longao glared at Tong Zun coldly. Deep down, he was extremely fearful. He knew very well that if he hadn't used the spatial teleportation technique in advance, he would have been hit by Tong Zun. With such speed and strength, how many people in the world would be able to evade it? Too strong. Longao had a feeling that Tong Zun's strength was comparable to the heavenly Dao's. The only thing he lacked was source energy. However, the source energy of the Tianwu continent was already controlled by the heavenly Dao's. If anyone wanted to obtain it, they would be killed by the heavenly Dao's. No one was willing to provoke the heavenly Dao's. Longao, it seems that the spatial artifact in your hand came from outside. Spatial artifact. Even Tong Zun thought that he had a spatial artifact. Longao couldn't imagine what would happen if he told them the truth. What **T spatial artifact? The only reason he could teleport was because of his bloodline and the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Only he could use such a divine ability in this world. Tong Zun probably hadn't even heard of it. Longao naturally wouldn't tell Tong Zun the truth. If Tong Zun said that he had a spatial artifact, then he had one. What does it have to do with you? Tong Zun wasn't angry at all. He smiled and said, "It seems that you have a lot of secrets. Longao, you won't be able to leave the Martial Artists Alliance alive today. As for your secrets, I'll search your soul later." Search his soul? Longao was shocked when he heard Tong Zun's words. Perhaps others didn't know what a soul search was, but Longao knew it very well. He knew how to search one's soul as well. The meaning of a soul search was very simple. It was to search one's soul in the shortest time possible after death. Longao sneered in his heart. Do you think it's possible to search my soul? Longao had already decided that even if he died, his soul would be devoured by the blood pool. He couldn't let Tong Zun search his soul. Are you scared? Longao shook his head helplessly. His face was full of disdain and contempt. He said mockingly, "I was wondering what kind of big shot the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance was. Now it seems that you're just SOSO. No, you're still a little invincible." What was it? Everyone was very curious. They did not know what the point that Longao was talking about was. This is the first time I've seen someone so thick-skinned since ancient times. You can say that you're invincible. Tong Zun, why don't you stop calling yourself Tong Zun? Just call yourself Shameless Tong. What do you think? Poochie. At that moment, someone let out a laugh. However, before that person could finish laughing, he was already stupefied on the spot. With a plop, that person's body directly fell to the ground, making the most intimate contact with the ground. It was Tong Tiendi, the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance. What a joke! Longao was obviously insulting the ancestor. How dare this person laugh? Wasn't he laughing at the ancestor? If he didn't kill such a person, it was hard for Tong Tiendi to imagine whether the old ancestor would vent his anger on him. After all, the old ancestor was already very angry about the matter of Longao. Tong Tiendi didn't dare to continue provoking the ancestor. Who knew if the ancestor would be angry? Longao, I'd like to see who gave you such courage today. From the beginning, Tong Zun didn't take Longao seriously. So what if Longao could teleport? In front of absolute power, everything was nothing. This time, Tong Zun's body moved again. However, in the next second, Longao's body disappeared again. This time, Longao didn't continue to disappear. Instead, he disappeared completely. Tong Zun was surprised. He sensed the aura fluctuations around him and realized that Longao seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Even he couldn't sense Longao's existence. Could it be that Longao used a spatial artifact to do it? The more it was so, the more interested Tong Zun was in the spatial artifact in Longao's hands. The fact that Longao could disappear for such a long time and escape his detection already showed how powerful the spatial artifact was. It would be a lie to say that he didn't want it. Chapter 1278. In the Dragon Seal Space. Longao's face was gloomy. The main reason why he could enter the Dragon Seal Space was because Tong Zun did not know that he could disappear. If Tong Zun had known, would he have been able to enter the Dragon Seal Space so easily? Tong Zun aside, Shangguan Ear alone could easily interfere with the space ripples around him. 6 hours. He only had 6 hours. Once 6 hours passed, his cultivation would return to the level of a deity. Not only that, if he forcefully increased his strength, he would definitely suffer a backlash after 6 hours. By then, he might not even be able to survive, let alone save Yu Yin. Longao was extremely frustrated. He had never thought that he would suffer a backlash from the blood pool when he came to the Martial Artists Alliance. He even encountered the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Zun, personally. Tong Zun's strength was obvious. After the battle, Longao knew that even if he forcefully increased his strength and suffered a backlash from the blood pool, he would not be Tong Zun's match. What should he do? He calculated the time and realized that he had less than 4 hours left. Master, that was too dangerous. If Tong Zun did not help, you would have been devoured by the blood pool. At that moment, Longao could not care about anything else. As long as he could take Yu Yin away, he was willing to give up his life. His face was extremely pale. He coughed twice. Longao was already injured after being hit by Tong Zun. However, under such circumstances, Longao could not care about anything else. Long Fu, is there any way for me to defeat Tong Zun? He forcefully swallowed his saliva. Long Fu shrugged helplessly and sighed. I believe that you have experienced Tong Zun's strength. Even if the two old masters were here, they might not be able to defeat Tong Zun, let alone you. Hearing these words, Longao also jumped in fright. He knew that Tong Zun was powerful, but he did not expect that even Long Tien and the primordial divine dragon would not be able to defeat Tong Zun. One could only imagine how powerful Tong Zun was. Is there really no other way? He shook his head. Master, I know what you're thinking, but I can only tell you that there's nothing I can do. Longao was very clear that Long Fu must have done his best. Otherwise, Long Fu would not be like this. Was he going to give up just like that? If it was something else, Longao might not take the risk. After all, Tong Zun's strength was obvious. But this matter. Before coming here, Longao had already disregarded life and death. Even if he had to sacrifice himself, he would take Yu Yin away. It was almost impossible for Tong Zun, Tong Tiendi, and the others to take someone away from the Martial Artists Alliance. Outside the Dragon Seal Space, Tong Tiendi carefully came to Tong Zun's side and whispered, Ancestor, Longao's spatial divine device can disappear for a long time. We've suffered a few losses before. Tong Tiendi did not need to say it. Tong Zun already knew. His face was gloomy and as ugly as it could get. Tong Zun did not expect that Longao would disappear without a trace under his watch. This matter would definitely spread. How would he keep his face then? Sky Emperor, among all the leaders of the alliance, I thought you would be the best. But you've disappointed me. Tong Tiendi was shocked when he heard that. He did not dare to say anything. The real leader of the Martial Artists Alliance was not him. It was Tong Zun, the ancestor in front of him. Tong Tiendi knew very well that as long as the ancestor said something, his position as the alliance leader would come to an end. I've been in seclusion for so many years. I've never interfered with the affairs of the alliance. If I hadn't appeared today, wouldn't the alliance have been slaughtered by Longao? Tong Tiendi still did not dare to say anything. What the ancestor said was absolutely true. If not for the old ancestor's timely appearance, the alliance would have fallen into a state of eternal damnation. Longao was too unpredictable. Before this, no one would have believed that Longao could be so powerful. Ancestor, what should we do now? Longao's cultivation was forcefully increased by using a secret skill. I don't think he can last more than 4 hours. Tong Zun thought for a while and asked, what's going on? Tong Tiendi did not dare to lie. He immediately told him about the grudge between Longao and the Martial Artists Alliance. For a woman. Tong Zun was a little angry when he heard that Longao came here for a woman. Did the Martial Artists Alliance have nothing better to do than provoke such a malefic person for a woman? Before Tong Zun could say anything, Tong Tiendi said, Ancestor, Yu Yin's physique is not ordinary. It's exactly what the ancestor needed. Really? Tong Zun's face was full of surprise. He had been waiting for this opportunity for more than 10,000 years. However, Tong Zun's face turned cold again. He said coldly, since you found her, why didn't you report it earlier? Ancestor, I've been helping Yu Yin break through to the Nirvana realm. I wanted to use Yu Yin to kill Longao and get rid of all future troubles. I didn't expect Longao to become like this. As for Yu Yin, I've lost my mind. Do you know that you'll be in a lot of trouble if you do this? Ancestor, of course I know. However, Longao is too unpredictable, Tong Tiendi said immediately. He was afraid of this. He had been struggling for a long time whether he should do this or not. However, when he thought of Longao, he clenched his teeth and let it go. Tong Zun, who was about to get angry, seemed to have thought of something. He took a deep breath and said, You've done the right thing. Since you've helped me find the physique, I won't pursue this matter. However, Longao hasn't left yet. We must find him as soon as possible. Tong Zun knew that with Longao's current strength, even if he could only last for 2 hours, it would be a terrifying matter. Tong Zun was not worried at all if they did it openly. However, he was afraid that Longao would play dirty. At that time, it would be impossible to guard against him. Ancestor, we can't pinpoint Longao's location. I'll ask for my old friend. Tong Tiendi heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that the ancestor's old friend was an old friend. Others might not know, but as the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, he knew very well what the ancestor's old friend meant. No matter where Longao was hiding, even if he used a spatial artifact, as long as the ancestor's old friend was there, he could easily pinpoint Longao's location. With this, Longao could be said to have nowhere to hide. There was only the path of death. P.S. Copy of the first chapter. Chapter 1279. In less than half an hour, the news of Longao causing a ruckus at the Martial Artists Alliance had spread throughout the Qianwu continent. Everyone who received the news turned pale with fright. Was Longao out of his mind? Why did he cause a ruckus at the Martial Artists Alliance? Was he tired of living? The reason why Longao was able to leave the Martial Artists Alliance was because of the arrival of the Three Master. Otherwise, Longao would be dead by now. As the saying goes, a fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. Longao did not learn his lesson. Everyone thought that Longao was crazy. Everyone thought that Longao would definitely die after causing a ruckus at the Martial Artists Alliance. But what was the result? Not only did Longao cause a ruckus at the Martial Artists Alliance, but he also fought against 9 people at the same time. He fought against the 8 deputy leaders of the Martial Artists Alliance and Ren Tianxing of the Blood Soul Valley. Not only that, in a situation where Longao was fighting 1 against 9, in just a few minutes, he had consecutively killed 2 Vice Alliance Masters. What did that mean? However, the 8 deputy leaders of the Martial Art Alliance were all true Nirvana Realm martial artists. Including Ren Tianxing, there were 9 Nirvana Realm martial artists in total. Longao was only a Supreme Realm warrior. How could he fight against 9 people at the same time? Was that true? No one believed it when the news spread. After all, it was too unbelievable. With Longao's strength, he might not even be able to win in a one-on-one fight, let alone fighting against 9 people at the same time. But the truth was right in front of them. They had to believe it. An hour after the news of Longao causing a ruckus at the Martial Artists Alliance and killing 2 deputy leaders spread, the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Zun, who had died, suddenly appeared and defeated Longao with 1 move. The Tianwu continent was in an uproar. Tong Zun was not dead. The ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance was not dead. What exactly happened? Everyone was deeply shocked and scared out of their wits. However, in everyone's opinion, since Tong Zun, the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, had personally come and defeated Longao in 1 move, then Longao would definitely die. But what was the result? Not only did Longao not die, but he also continued to insult Tong Zun in front of everyone. Upon hearing this news, everyone had only one reaction, and that was that Longao was crazy. Not to mention Longao, even the master of the 10 directions wouldn't dare to act like this. Even he had to be respectful before Tong Zun. While questioning Longao, everyone also began to admire Longao. If a person dared to break into the Martial Artists Alliance by himself, he would be crazy. If a person dared to make trouble in the Martial Artists Alliance twice, he would be a madman among madmen. This courage alone was enough to make him look down on the world. Who would dare to make trouble at the Martial Artists Alliance twice? Not to mention twice, they wouldn't even dare to do it once. In just 2 hours, Longao's fame skyrocketed by tens of thousands of times. At this moment, it could be said that there was no one in the Tianwu continent who did not know Longao. Longao's name was completely known throughout the world. In other words, whether Longao won or lost, whether he was alive or dead, it didn't matter anymore. Longao's courage and craziness had completely convinced everyone. First on the Earth leaderboard. According to Longao's strength, it was already good enough for him to be in the top 10 of the Earth leaderboard. But now, Longao was directly ranked first on the Earth leaderboard, and no one dared to say anything. Longao's strength was there for all to see. Regardless of what method Longao had used, who could kill 2 Nirvana Realm warriors consecutively under the age of 40? Longao did it. Longao's strength was enough to be ranked first on the Earth leaderboard. But now, the person ranked first on the Earth leaderboard was willing to give up his position because even he wouldn't dare to fight against a Nirvana Realm warrior alone, let alone 1 against 9 and killing 2 Nirvana Realm warriors. Earth leaderboards number 1. At this moment, Longao was not only ranked first on the Earth leaderboard, he was also ranked in the top 30 of the Heaven leaderboard. As for his specific ranking, it had not been confirmed yet. The Heaven leaderboard was the most valuable ranking of the super experts in the entire Tianwu continent. It was not an ordinary difficulty to enter the Heaven leaderboard. Even the top 3 of the Earth leaderboard could only be at the bottom of the Heaven leaderboard. One could imagine what kind of super experts were in the top 30 of the Heaven leaderboard. But in the end, no one objected, because everyone recognized that Longao could be ranked in the top 30 of the Heaven leaderboard. It wasn't just strength, just this courage was enough to show disdain for everyone. Longao didn't know that he was ranked first on the Earth leaderboard and top 30 on the Heaven leaderboard. If he knew, Longao would probably be scared silly. He was only a man-god, but he could be ranked on both leaderboards. Not to mention others, even he himself wouldn't believe it. No matter what, Longao was completely famous this time, and his fame spread throughout the entire Tianwu continent. The other 9 major powers, the Great Clan, Martial Artists Alliance, WN Shou Sect, Heaven and Earth Sect, Five Elements Sect, Wanzhan School, Sword Sect, Purple Thunder Sect, and Black Heaven Sect, although they were surprised by Longao's actions, what made them feel the most inconceivable was that the old ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tongzun, didn't fall. Instead, he appeared and defeated Longao in one move. The 9 major powers knew very well what it meant that Tongzun didn't fall. Tongzun's appearance might be a good thing for the Martial Artists Alliance, but it definitely wasn't a good thing for the 9 major powers. This was because the presence of a super expert would raise the status of the Martial Artists Alliance by a lot. Of course, the 9 major powers didn't want to see such a thing happen. But what could they do? Go up to him? Or fight against Tongzun together? These were all unrealistic questions. After all, Tongzun and the Martial Artists Alliance's strength was obvious, and the 9 major powers couldn't join hands. The Long family was the first to give up. The reason was very simple. The Long family couldn't even take care of themselves now. The Way of Heaven sealed the Dragon Clan to target the Dragon Clan and the Long family. If it were anyone else, the Long family wouldn't be afraid, but only the Way of Heaven. The Long family couldn't do anything. They could only wait obediently and see what the Way of Heaven wanted to do. Long family gave up. The other 8 major powers also gave up one by one. However, the 9 major powers were very concerned about the Martial Artists Alliance. They all sent experts to investigate the latest situation of the Martial Artists Alliance. With Tongzun's appearance, Longao would definitely die. This was something that everyone thought was certain. But what was the result? Longao didn't die. Not only did he not die, but he also disappeared. It was exactly the same as last time, but this time, he disappeared right under Tongzun's nose. Perhaps no one would believe such a thing. However, the truth was right in front of them. Longao did disappear, and he did disappear right under Tongzun's nose. They had no choice but to believe it. In the following time, everyone was guessing why Longao suddenly chose to cause trouble in the Martial Artists Alliance. After all, the Martial Artists Alliance was holding a blind date in the arena. Could it be that Longao was doing this for the blind date in the arena? Chapter 1280. The result of his conjecture was that Longao had caused a ruckus in the Martial Arts Alliance this time because of Yuyin. Wang Yuyin, the pig trotter of the Martial Artists Alliance's arena. Was it worth it to do that for a woman? Countless young men and women were impressed by Longao's wildness. A man who dared to love and hate and would go through fire and water for love was worthy of respect. However, there were also many people who thought that Longao was simply an idiot. You could say that. There were all sorts of different opinions. At the Martial Artists Alliance. The Martial Arts Alliance was now locked down within a radius of a few thousand meters. No one was allowed to enter without permission. Those who disobeyed the order would be killed without mercy. In the 9th heaven. Old friend, I hope you can help me find this man. He transmitted Longao's energy into his old friend's body. Tongzun had no doubt about his old friend's strength. Tongzun's old friend was a giant wolf. There was only one heavenly wolf in the world. Its entire body was pure black, and its eyes were cold. Just by standing there without moving, one could feel the wildness and coldness coming from the heavenly wolf. Sky Wolf's strength was obvious. Tongzun saw Sky Wolf as an old friend. It was imaginable how powerful it was. Don't worry. Sky Wolf had already reached the Nirvana realm. It was easy for him to speak human language. He didn't hesitate at all. Sky Wolf knew his old friend was anxious, so he started to act with the energy Tongzun gave him. Sky Wolf's greatest power was to lock down all creatures with his energy. He could do that even if you had a divine spatial device. In just a few minutes. He's here. Sky Wolf pointed at the space and said confidently. It was empty. Others wouldn't believe it, but Tongzun trusted Sky Wolf's ability. If Sky Wolf said Longao was here, then Longao must be here. Old friend, do you have any ideas? It's hard. Lock down this place first. I'll think of something. Just in case, Tongzun and Sirius made their moves as well. The man and the wolf worked together to completely seal the space around the dragon seal. In the dragon seal space. Master, the dragon seal has been locked down. You must not go out. Otherwise, Tongzun will definitely find out. He was shocked. Longao had always had confidence in the dragon seal. No matter who it was, even if it was the heavenly Tao, even if he entered the dragon seal space, he believed that the heavenly Tao would have a hard time discovering him. If that was the case, how did Tongzun do it? Before Longao could ask, Long Fu seemed to know that Longao would ask, so he said, Master, you don't know, but Tongzun has a powerful mythical beast by his side. It's called Sky Wolf. Next, Long Fu roughly explained the Sky Wolf's mystique and strength. After hearing it, Longao sighed. Tongzun's strength was already strong enough. Now, there was Sky Wolf, whose strength was comparable to Tongzun's. With the man and the wolf working together, it was obvious how terrifying their strength was. Just like what Long Fu said, with the current situation, he definitely couldn't go out. Otherwise, he would definitely be attacked by Tongzun as soon as he stepped out of the dragon seal space. Do I have to stay here forever? Counting the time, there was only half of the 6 hours left. If he couldn't take Yu Yin away in the remaining 3 hours, he would have no chance. What should he do? Longao knew that he had to take Yu Yin away before he was attacked. At the last moment, he would do it even if it was risky. Under such circumstances, Longao couldn't care about anything else. With no other choice, Longao could only communicate with the deity blade and the dragon seal space to bring Bai Ling and Xiling into the dragon seal space. He wanted to see if the two of them had any way to help him take Yu Yin away. Before Longao could ask, Bai Ling glared at him fiercely. Big brother Long, have you forgotten what you promised me? How could Longao not know about Bai Ling's worries? The more it was so, the more he couldn't let anything happen to Bai Ling. Fortunately, he had sealed the deity blade. Otherwise, once Xiling and Bai Ling appeared, not only would they not be able to help him, but they would also be captured by Tongzun and devoured. Bai Ling, let's talk about this later. Help me think of a way to deal with Tongzun. Longao didn't care if the two of them knew about Tongzun and Sky Wolf. Anyway, he told them everything that had happened. Brother Long, can't you give up? Longao didn't say anything, but the expression on his face said it all. After a deep sigh, Bai Ling seemed like she wanted to say something. But in the end, she swallowed her words. Because she knew Longao's character well. Once he had decided on something, it was hard to change his mind. Longao, I know. But I can tell you clearly that Sky Wolf and Tongzun aren't people that you can deal with. Even if you fuse with our sword chi origin, you won't be able to fight against them. Unless my sister and I recover our strength to our peak. But it's not possible now. Although he already knew the result, Longao couldn't help but sigh. It seemed like he had to force his way through. He couldn't care less about whether he lived or died. Brother Long, why don't you let me help you? Longao waved his hand. Even if he didn't ask, he knew how Bai Ling was going to help him. He didn't dare to accept this kind of help. Because if he could take away Yu Yin and sacrifice Bai Ling, Longao would rather sacrifice himself than Yu Yin or Bai Ling outside the dragon seal space. Old friend, is there still no way? Sky Wolf shook his head and said helplessly, it seems like the spatial divine tool is from the outside. It's so powerful. Once you and I get it, our chances of getting the origin energy will increase greatly. Even his old friend said so. Tongzun already knew what the divine tool in Longao's hand meant. It would be a lie if he said that he didn't want to get it. However, the problem now was that he couldn't break the divine tool. If Longao didn't come out, then he wouldn't be able to do anything about it. It seems like the only way to break this spatial divine tool is to shatter the surrounding space and let the space crack compress the spatial divine tool. You should know that with our strength, once we break the space and get swallowed by the space crack, the consequences will be unimaginable. Even you and I will be swallowed by the space crack in an instant. We've waited for so many years. It's not easy to get such a powerful spatial divine tool. Are we going to give it up just like that? I don't want to, I really don't want to. Chapter 1281. They were unwilling. In the end, Tong Zun and Tian Lang decided to take the risk. One man and one wolf were very clear in their hearts that once they obtained the spatial divine tool in Longao's hands this time, it would bring them indescribable benefits. Tong Zun and Tian Lang's intention was simple. They were both very close to the peak of the martial path. They were only one step away from merging with the origin energy. The last step was extremely difficult. Everyone knew that all the origin energy in the Tianwu continent was controlled by the heavenly Tao. No one could get it. Otherwise, who knew how many peak experts would appear in the Tianwu continent? It was impossible to get the origin energy through normal means. Once Tong Zun got the spatial divine device, he would have a much higher chance of getting the origin energy. However, in the next moment, before Tong Zun and Tian Lang could make a move, Longao, who had been hiding in the dragon seal space, suddenly appeared in front of them. He was surprised. Tong Zun did not make a move immediately. He looked at Longao with a cold smile. Longao, you dare to come out? Why wouldn't I? Tong Zun was speechless. He did not expect Longao to reply in such a way. You are Longao? Looking at the huge black wolf beside Tong Zun, Longao knew that it was the so-called Sirius, the one and only super mythical beast in the world. Tian Lang's strength was comparable to Tong Zun's. Longao did not continue hiding in the dragon seal space. The 6 hours were getting closer and closer. Once the 6 hours were up, he would be devoured by the origin energy. At that time, he would not be able to take Yu Yin away. Let me take Yu Yin away. From now on, the grudge between me and the Martial Artists Alliance will be written off. Longao chose to ignore Tian Lang. He only had one goal, which was to take Yu Yin away. He did not want to fight to the death with the Martial Artists Alliance. Dealing with the Martial Artists Alliance was a matter for the future. It was not something he needed to do now. Tong Zun was not angry. Instead, he laughed at Longao's arrogance and ignorance. Was it possible to take Yu Yin away? Not to mention the fact that Longao had made a scene at the Martial Artists Alliance today, Yu Yin's physique alone made it impossible for him to let her go. Longao, you want to take Yu Yin away? Longao didn't say anything because he didn't know what Tong Zun was up to. Alright, I promise you, but you have to promise me one thing. Speak. It's very simple. As long as you leave behind an arm and a leg, cripple your own cultivation, and leave behind your spatial artifact, you can take Yu Yin away. How could Longao not know how shameless Tong Zun was? Tong Zun's intention was simple. He knew that Longao would never agree. Just as he had expected. Longao smiled and said helplessly, I gave you face, but you don't want it. Tong Zun, don't think that you can defeat me. I can tell you clearly that even if my strength is not as good as yours, as long as I want to, I can easily slaughter the Martial Arts Alliance. Do you believe me? Tong Zun and Sky Wolf, who had been smiling, were stunned. Just now, Longao's speed and his escape with the help of the spatial divine tool were still vivid in his mind. Just as Longao said, even if his strength could suppress the other party still had a spatial divine tool. It was always better to be safe than sorry. What if they failed to kill Longao and Longao escaped? What would happen to the Martial Artists Alliance? With Longao's current strength, it would be too easy for him to slaughter the Martial Artists Alliance. Even Tong Tiendi could not resist Longao's attack. If so, the Martial Artists Alliance would be in danger. Whoosh! Before Sky Wolf and Tong Zun could react, Longao's figure instantly disappeared. In fact, Longao was not confident that he could escape from the joint attack of two super strong men. Even with the help of spatial teleportation, he could not do it. That was right. Longao came up with this idea. When Tong Zun and Sky Wolf were not paying attention, the chances of him escaping would be infinitely higher. Sky Wolf and Tong Zun looked at each other and saw a trace of worry in each other's eyes. The two of them were not fools. They instantly understood what Longao meant. Let's split up. No matter what happens, we must find each other as soon as possible. Sky Wolf also knew the seriousness of the situation. He did not dare to hesitate and immediately took action. The man and the wolf split up and soon disappeared without a trace. As soon as the man and the wolf disappeared, Longao's figure appeared. Looking at the man and the dragon who had disappeared, Longao's mouth slowly curved into a cold smile. This time, he was able to avoid Sky Wolf's aura lock because of Long Fu, Xiling, and Bai Ling's help. He had to admit that Sky Wolf's ability to lock onto him was a little crazy. Even if he hid in the dragon seal space, he could not escape from Sky Wolf's lock onto him. Long Fu, can you lock on to Yu Yin's aura? When Longao got the dragon seal, Yu Yin happened to be by his side. Therefore, Long Fu was not unfamiliar with Yu Yin's aura. Therefore, Longao planned to use Long Fu to lock on to Yu Yin's location so that he could take Yu Yin and leave the Martial Artists Alliance as soon as possible. Every minute they were delayed, Yu Yin and he would be in more danger. Master, please give me some time. With a dignified expression, Longao did not continue to force Long Fu. This was because he knew that there were many experts in the Martial Artists Alliance. Long Fu had to avoid Tong Zun and Sky Wolf's aura. This way, the progress of locking on to Yu Yin would be much slower. Long Fu also knew that his master was very anxious. He immediately began to release the aura of the Dragon Seal, enveloping the entire Martial Artists Alliance. He carefully searched for Yu Yin's location. However, after scanning for a while, he still could not lock on to Yu Yin's location. Time trickled by. After an unknown amount of time, about an hour or so, Longao could not wait any longer. With a turn of his body disappeared. He was prepared to personally look for Yu Yin because there was not much time left. After a rough calculation, there was less than 2 hours left before the 6 hours were up. In other words, if he could not take Yu Yin away within 2 hours, then things would be really troublesome. At that time, not only would he not be able to take Yu Yin away, he would also be devoured by the origin sword Qi. The consequences would be unimaginable. This was exactly the case. Longao could not wait any longer. As he ran, he tried to sense for Yu Yin's aura. Where was Yu Yin? Brother Long, come with me. At this moment, Tong Ling-er's figure appeared. Seeing Tong Ling-er, Longao was immediately delighted. This was because he knew very well that with Tong Ling-er's status in the Martial Artists Alliance, she would definitely know where Yu Yin was. Ling-er, where is Yu Yin? Longao could not wait any longer. He knew that he did not have much time left. P.S. I just got off work, so I'm a bit late. Everyone, please forgive me. The 4th chapter has been delivered. No matter what, Xiaoju will explode with 10 chapters today. Chapter 1282. Tong Ling-er, Tong Tiandi's daughter, was the apple of the Martial Artists Alliance's eye. Just as Longao had guessed. This time, in order to deal with him, the Martial Arts Alliance had hidden Yu Yin in an extremely secretive place. If there was no one to lead the way, it would be very difficult to find Yu Yin's location just by locking onto her aura. Brother Long, although I know where she is, it's very dangerous. I'm afraid you'll be in danger. Of course, Tong Ling-er didn't want Longao to die. Ling-er, I'm running out of time. Where on earth is Yu Yin? Tong Ling-er didn't know what Longao meant. She felt jealous. Come with me. She nodded. Longao followed Tong Ling-er to the Aquamoon Cave as fast as he could. Outside the Aquamoon Cave, the most dangerous place was the safest place. Longao had never expected that the Martial Artists Alliance would hide Yu Yin in the Aquamoon Cave. If Tong Ling-er hadn't brought him here, it would have been very difficult to find her. Ling-er, you leave first. Before Tong Ling-er could say anything, Longao continued, I don't want anything to happen to you. I won't kill your father. Since he had said that, Tong Ling-er could only sigh deeply in her heart and turn around to leave. From the beginning to the end, Longao had never planned to kill Tong Tiandi. The reason was very simple. No matter how big the grudge between him and Tong Tiandi was, Tong Tiendi was still Tong Linger's father. As the saying goes, even if you don't respect the monk, you have to respect the Buddha. He didn't sense any Nirvana warrior's aura. What was going on? Longao had thought that there would be many Nirvana warriors guarding the Aquamoon cave. But now it seemed that there were no strong warriors. Wouldn't it be a waste for him? Longao did not let his guard down at all, because he knew very well that the reason he started a war with the Martial Artists Alliance this time was mainly because of Yu Yin. He knew it, and so did the Martial Artists Alliance. The Martial Artists Alliance would not make such a low-level mistake. It seemed like the Aquamoon heavenly abode was filled with danger. The slightest carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. Longao, do you still recognize me? Before Longao could enter, Longao, Hades, and Yu Yin appeared in front of him. Hades seemed very surprised, because even she did not expect Longao to be so strong. Not only had he fought against 9 of them alone, but he had even killed 2 of their vice leaders and forced the Grand Ancestor to show himself. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Hades would never have believed it. From the beginning to the end, Hades had never taken Longao seriously. I'm going to take Yu Yin away. Longao had never had a good impression of the underworld god. If it were not for Hades, he would not have been separated from Yu Yin for so many years. It was all thanks to Hades. You want to take Yu Yin away? Hades sneered and said, Longao, don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you increased your strength by force. Even without the Grand Ancestor, you can't take Yu Yin away today. Do you believe it? Looking at the confident Hades, Longao would be lying if he said that he was not afraid and not worried. Longao looked at Yu Yin in front of him and was a little surprised. Because at this moment, Yu Yin seemed a little dull. Her eyes were empty, and she did not recognize him at all. Something was wrong. Longao was not a fool. At first glance, he had already noticed that something was wrong with Yu Yin. It seemed that the Martial Artists Alliance had done something to Yu Yin. He was extremely angry, and his face was extremely gloomy. Those who stand in my way will die. Ha ha ha, with just you? Hades suddenly laughed crazily. She had never thought highly of Longao. Even now, in her eyes, Longao was still trash. Trash was trash. Longao could not wait any longer, because the 6 hours were almost up. If he still could not take Yu Yin away, then he and Yu Yin would have to stay here, and their lives would be in the hands of the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao's body moved. In Longao's opinion, with his current strength, even if Tong Tiendi and the others joined forces, they would not be his match, let alone Hades. Hades was only a warrior of the divine path. But what was the result? Longao left quickly, and returned even faster. Longao's face was full of shock. They had only exchanged 1 blow, but he could clearly feel Hades' terrifying strength. With such strength, even if he was not as strong as Tong Tiendi, he believed that Hades was on par with him. It was no wonder that Hades had such a high position in the Martial Artists Alliance. He scolded fiercely. The Martial Artist Alliance was indeed a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. As expected of one of the 10 great tripods, Longao finally witnessed the power of the Martial Artist Alliance. Longao did not dare to be careless. He looked at Hades coldly. Even though he knew that he was no match for him, he still rushed out. This was because he came to the Martial Artists Alliance this time to take Yu Yin away, even though he knew that Hades was powerful. Longao teleported. In the next second, he was already in front of Hades. He punched out with both fists toward Hades. Longao used all of his strength in this punch. Even Tong Tiendi would not dare to take it head-on. Otherwise, this punch would be enough to kill Tong Tiendi. However, Hades did not have the slightest intention of dodging. He took Longao's punch head-on. In other words, Hades stood still and was hit by Longao's punch. Longao felt as if he had punched cotton. Longao's heart trembled. The strength of the underworld god was a bit too overbearing. Longao didn't dare to be careless. He immediately left, but it was too late. The underworld god's body was shaking like a breeze. Before Longao could react, he was hit by Hades. His body flew out like a kite with a broken string. However, before Longao could fly too far, Hade's body appeared again. Then, he punched Longao again. In this way, Longao was punched left and right by Hades continuously. If it was someone else, they would have been smashed to death. However, Longao had the holy body of desolation and the sword chi origin of Tu Genling. Therefore, even if he was hit continuously, Longao stopped abruptly. Hades was very surprised. She never thought that Longao could take so many of her punches. After all, Hades was very confident in her strength. Longao was indeed a little extraordinary. Longao, I will show you the power of the Dark World. Dark World? Although Longao did not know what the so-called Dark World was, he was very clear that the god of the underworld's move was definitely not simple. He did not dare to be careless. He endured the pain in his body, gritted his teeth, and prepared to take the other party's move. At this moment, a black fog appeared around Hades' body. It was very strange. In an instant, it enveloped Longao. Erosion. Longao was shocked. He could clearly feel that the dark aura released by Hades at this time could erode his soul. P.S. I got off work late today. I only got off work at 10 o'clock. Xiaoju ate and immediately continued to write. This is the 5th chapter. Even if I don't sleep tonight, I will finish the remaining 10 chapters. Chapter 1283. Who on earth was Hades? Longao was not a fool. Hades had such terrifying strength, so his identity was definitely not simple. Longao could feel that Hades' strength was definitely above Tong Tiandi's. If that was the case, wouldn't the underworld god be the second strongest person in the martial arts alliance? He cursed in his heart. Tong Zun was already hard enough to deal with. Now there was Hades. With the combination of the two, it was really uncertain whether he could take Yu Yin away this time. It did not matter if he died. Longao knew that no matter what happened, he would take Yu Yin away this time. Hades, are you still Yu Yin's master? He seemed to know what Longao wanted to say. He waved his hand. Without giving Longao any chance to continue, Hades sneered and said, Longao, Yu Yin is my disciple. She was, is, and will be in the future. But if you want to take Yu Yin away, you can't. Hades' strength was obvious. How could he force his way in? It was getting closer and closer to the 6 hours. After 6 hours, he would be counterattacked by the sword energy of origin. He did not even know whether he would live or die. Yu Yin would definitely die if she continued to stay in the Martial Artists Alliance. Thinking of this, Longao's murderous aura became more and more intense. He stared coldly at Hades and asked, I'll ask you one last time. Will you let me take Yu Yin away? No. It was a fight with his back to the wall. You forced me to do this. 9 needles of mind. Longao had no choice but to use 9 needles of mind in the end. 9 needles of mind could improve one's strength in the shortest time, but the consequences were not something that ordinary people could accept. Longao knew very well that he had already used the 9 needles to confer God several times and had escaped death. If he continued to use it forcefully, then this time he was afraid that he would directly die from the backlash of the 9 needles to confer God. Using the origin sword chi to increase his strength, he used the 9 needles to continue to increase his strength. It was easy to imagine the consequences of the double upgrade. But in this case, Longao had no other choice. He could only take Yu Yin away first. It was still that sentence. Longao had already disregarded life and death. 9 divine needles appeared and pierced into 9 different acupoints on Longao's body. Instantly, Longao's aura began to circulate crazily. In just a few seconds, his strength had increased by at least 10 times. What kind of concept was this? Hades' expression changed as well. If it was before, she wouldn't have put Longao in her eyes at all. She could have easily dealt with Longao with a flick of her finger. But now, Longao. Feeling the sudden surge of aura from Longao's body, Hades knew very well that Longao must have used some kind of secret technique. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to improve so much in such a short time. Strike first. Hades was really a little worried, so she rushed out and prepared to kill Longao first. It was better to be safe than sorry. If Longao's strength really increased to a level higher than hers, then wouldn't she be defeated? But what was the result? Longao's strength was definitely not as good as Hade's, but under the enhancement of the 9 needles to confer God, his strength had increased by dozens of times. With a cold look, Longao directly threw out a punch. The 2 fists fiercely collided together, and sparks flew. Hade's, who was still arrogant just a moment ago, was directly sent flying by the punch. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was extremely gloomy. Hade's never thought that the opponent's strength would be so strong. If that was the case, then wouldn't she be no match for him? Before Hade's could react, Longao's body had already disappeared. When Hade's finally reacted, not only Longao, but also Yu Yin had disappeared. She was shocked. As soon as the 2 disappeared, Tong Zun, Sirius, and Tong Tiendi arrived. Looking at the god of the underworld, everyone knew what had happened. Master, Longao has left. Master, if Longao was here and heard Hade's words, what would he think? It turned out that Hade's master was Tong Zun, the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance. Why did you fail? Tong Zun loved this disciple of his very much. Even when Longao took away Yu Yin, he did not immediately go berserk. Instead, he asked calmly. This was because Tong Zun could not understand why his disciple would let Longao leave with his strength. Could there be a change in the situation? Hade's fiercely scolded himself in his heart. It was all because he had delayed too much. Otherwise, Longao would be dreaming if he wanted to leave. Without hiding anything, he recounted everything that had happened earlier in full detail. After listening, Tong Zun nodded and said, if I'm not mistaken, Longao used the secret skill again. It's hard to imagine that there is such a secret skill in the world. Pass down my order. From now on, attack the dragon sect with all your might. As long as someone can find Longao's whereabouts, I will accept him as my disciple. I promise that within 3 years, his cultivation will increase by 5 realms. Hearing their ancestors' order, Tong Tiendi and the others did not dare hesitate. They immediately scattered. Longao is not simple. It seems we miscalculated this time. Tong Zun nodded. He had not expected Longao to use the secret skill twice to forcefully increase his strength. If he had known, he wouldn't have been so careless. At the start, he would have directly dealt with Longao, not giving Longao the slightest chance. I want to see how Longao will escape from my grasp. Longao has forcefully broken through his strength twice. If nothing unexpected happens, he will definitely suffer a backlash from his strength. If he dies somewhere, in the vast sea of people in the Sky Martial continent, it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to find a corpse. We have waited for so many years and finally got the chance. Are we going to give up so easily? Tong Zun's expression was ugly when he heard Tian Lang's words. This should have been a sure thing, but an accident had occurred. Furthermore, it was his disciple who had made a mistake. He had no way to vent his anger. Do you have a good idea? No. It seems like we can only rely on the greed of the world to find Longao's whereabouts. However, the chances are slim. How could Tong Zun not know that the chances were slim? But what could he do? Just as Tian Lang had said, the Martial Heaven continent was filled with people. Finding a single person was easier said than done. Even the Martial Arts Alliance would find it difficult to do so. It would be a lie to say that they weren't angry. Then what should we do now? Tong Zun thought for a moment and said, we'll take it one step at a time. It seems like the Martial Heaven continent will not be peaceful with my appearance. However, it has been quiet for 10,000 years. It's time for us to make a ruckus. Back then, we lost to the Heavenly Tao. This time, we must win. Tong Zun and Tian Lang looked at the sky at the same time. It was as if they could see through the void. Chapter 1284. Longao rushed to the dragon sect as fast as he could. But in the end, time waits for no man. Longao could have held on for another 2 hours, but after using the 9 needles to seal the spirit, The time was shortened by 10 times. 10 minutes later, Longao was already suffering from the backlash and could not hold on at all. There was no other way. Longao could only find an extremely secluded cave and seal the entrance completely. Then, he sat down cross-legged. Long Fu, help me take care of Yu Yin. Longao could clearly sense that there seemed to be something wrong with the current Yu Yin. Master, don't worry. Long Fu was also extremely worried. He said, Master, you are suffering from the backlash of 2 things. Immediately use the firmament devouring art. Nodding. Longao certainly knew the seriousness of the matter. He did not dare to be careless. Following Long Fu's instructions, he immediately started to use the firmament devouring art. A huge black vortex appeared behind him. Longao knew what Long Fu meant. He wanted to use the firmament devouring art to devour the power of the backlash. He hoped that this would be effective. The consequences of the double backlash could be imagined. If it were anyone else, they would have died at this moment. Xiling and Bai Ling's figures appeared. Bai Ling's face was filled with worry, but she knew very well that Longao could not be touched at all. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Sister, is this the Wang Yu Yin that Longao likes? Nodding. Bai Ling also saw Yu Yin beside Longao. However, Bai Ling was very curious. She asked, Sister, is there something wrong with Yu Yin? Of course there is something wrong. The Martial Artists Alliance is really ruthless. They have completely sealed Yu Yin's mind. Even if she can break the seal, it will be very harmful to Yu Yin. Elder sister. Without waiting for Bai Ling to finish, Xiling said, I don't have a way. Even if I did, I wouldn't save her. Xiling looked at his sister and knew what Bai Ling was thinking. Silly sister. Sometimes, Xiling felt helpless towards his sister. After all, it was not a good thing for a person to be too kind. Sister, I know what you're thinking, but have you ever thought that if we save this person, will Longao still treat you well? How could Bai Ling not know what her sister was talking about? But how could Bai Ling, who was born kind-hearted, watch Yu Yin die in vain? Within Longao's body, even if he used the firmament devouring art, he would not be able to recover from the double backlash. Longao knew that at this time, it had already reached the most critical moment. If he was slightly negligent, he was afraid that only death would await him. In the wordless book space, looking at the space around him, Longao was very curious. He did not know why he suddenly appeared here. Could it be that the mysterious young man moved him here? Other than this possibility, there seemed to be no other possibility. Just as expected, the mysterious young man suddenly appeared, but his face was extremely cold. He said coldly, Longao, you are too reckless this time. Longao did not speak, because he did not know what the mysterious young man wanted to say. From the beginning to the end, Longao did not believe the mysterious young man's words. Was it possible that he had reincarnated for 100 lifetimes? According to what he knew, a martial artist, no matter how terrifying his talent was, could at most reincarnate for 9 lifetimes. For example, Long Tian was a powerful existence even if he had reincarnated for 9 lifetimes, let alone 100 lifetimes. If he really had reincarnated for 100 lifetimes, wouldn't he be very powerful? But in the end, Longao, I can help you this time, but next time, even if you die, I won't help you. Hearing the mysterious young man's words, Longao was overjoyed. Although he did not know the mysterious young man's strength, Longao knew that since the mysterious young man dared to say so, he must be confident that he could help him. This time, he would definitely die from the double backlash. Thank you, Senior. Mitch, remember, this is the first and last time. Think carefully before you do anything. Shrugging his shoulders helplessly, Longao also heaved a long sigh of relief. It was all thanks to the mysterious young man that he was able to survive this calamity. Otherwise, with the strength of the double backlash, he would have definitely died. Next, Longao didn't know how the mysterious young man did it. In just a few hours, he was able to completely destroy his double backlash. However, it would be unrealistic to say that there weren't any side effects from forcefully increasing his strength this time. A few hours later, Longao slowly opened his eyes and let out a long sigh. Before Xiling and Bai Ling could ask, he said, "I'm fine now." This time, it was really scary but not dangerous. "You don't have to worry." Seeing that Longao was fine, the three of them were very experienced. This was because the three of them were very clear about the consequences of the double backlash. If there were no side effects, Longao could use the double boost again and again. At that time, in this big world, Longao would be able to do whatever he wanted. The three of them did not ask, because Longao obviously did not want to say more. Since that was the case, the three of them would not ask for a rebuff and ask Longao what happened. "Yu Yin, are you okay?" Seeing that Yu Yin did not say a word in front of him, Longao was very worried. He turned around and asked, "Do you know what happened to Yu Yin?" Longao did not care about himself. Although the mysterious young man helped him this time, it was very harmful to his body. He had to recuperate. Otherwise, it would definitely affect his future cultivation. However, in this situation, Longao did not have the mood to recuperate. He only cared about one thing, and that was Yu Yin in front of him. Brother Long, Yu Yin's mind must have been controlled by the Martial Artists Alliance and her spiritual soul must have been sealed. Hearing Bai Ling's words, Longao was shocked. However, Xiling cursed in her heart. However, since her sister had said so, she could only remain silent. She could not tell Longao that she had a way, but she would not tell him that she was doing all this for her sister. In fact, Xiling and Bai Ling already knew how deep Longao's feelings for Yu Yin were. After all, for Yu Yin, Longao dared to become enemies with the Martial Artists Alliance. If it was an ordinary person, would they be able to do this? Longao's feelings for Yu Yin exceeded that of ordinary people. Regarding this point, no matter if it was Xiling or Bai Ling, they were very clear in their hearts. "Bai Ling, do you have a way?" Xiling kept winking at Bai Ling, but Bai Ling turned a blind eye to it. After thinking for a while, she said, "Brother Long, if you want to save Yu Yin, you have to find the clairvoyant master, Tian Dao, or Tong Zun." She did not continue, because Bai Ling's meaning was very clear. Tong Zun and Tian Dao were already impossible. Only the clairvoyant master was left. P.S. If you want to continue supporting Xiaoju, Xiaoju thanks you. If you don't want to continue supporting Xiaoju, Xiaoju will not complain because Xiaoju has really tried her best. I am busy during the day and stay up until 4 or 5 at night to write. However, Xiaoju still grit her teeth and persevere. Chapter 1285. For Yu Yin, Longao went to the outer sea immediately. He didn't care about his own situation and went there without hesitation. Longao went to the outer sea as fast as he could, because the marvelous mathematician was in the Crystal Palace there. Sky Martial Continent. In the current Tianwu continent, it could be said that everyone was discussing spiritedly, and the person they were discussing was Longao, a legendary figure. He made a scene in the Martial Artists Alliance, killed 2 deputy chiefs of the alliance, lured out Tong Zun, the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, and successfully left the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao's various deeds could be said to be a mission that was simply impossible to complete. But the result? Longao did it. At this moment, Longao became famous. Before anyone could react, the Martial Artists Alliance announced to the world that as long as anyone could find Longao's whereabouts, the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Zun, would not only accept that person as his disciple, but also help that person improve by 5 levels. What did that mean? If it were anyone else, no one would be willing to help the Martial Artists Alliance. But Tong Zun had a different idea. Everyone knew that Tong Zun was not only the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, but also a super powerhouse who had surpassed the heaven role. If one could become the disciple of such a powerhouse, they would not have to worry about their cultivation in the future while improving by 5 levels. The announcement of the Martial Artists Alliance moved everyone, including the disciples of the other 9 super forces. Everyone was ready to make a move. Without any suspense, Tong Zun announced to the world personally. Everyone started to look for Longao. Originally, many people were afraid of Longao. After all, Longao dared to break into the Martial Artists Alliance alone, killed 2 deputy chiefs, and escaped under Tongzun's nose. That in itself showed how powerful Longao was. But the result? When Tongzun announced to the world, the Martial Artists Alliance released a piece of news about Longao. The news released by the Martial Artists Alliance was simple. That is, the biggest reason why Longao had the strength of a Nirvana Realm warrior when he made a ruckus at the Martial Artists Alliance was that Longao had used some kind of secret skill to forcibly raise his strength. There were both good and bad things about this. The advantage was that by using the secret technique, one could forcibly increase one's strength in the shortest amount of time. The downside was that once the time passed, he would suffer a backlash, and the consequences would be unimaginable. So that was the case. When everyone knew that Longao had used a secret technique, they were still very respectful towards Longao. How many people in the world had the guts to do so? Longao did it. However, under the huge temptation, no one could resist. Everyone began to frantically search for traces of Longao. This kind of phenomenon had never appeared in so many years, and the source of all this was because of one person, and that was Longao. Under normal circumstances, trying to find a single person in the sea of people of the Martial Heaven continent was like trying to find a needle in the ocean. However, the situation was completely different now. Everyone in the Martial Heaven continent was looking for Longao, which greatly reduced the difficulty of finding him. However, even so, as long as Longao hid and did not come out, it was still very difficult to find him. Not only that, the Martial Artists Alliance began to attack the Dragon Sect. This time, the Martial Artists Alliance used all their strength, and announced to the world that if someone could help the Martial Artists Alliance destroy the Dragon Sect, then that force would receive the full support of the Martial Artists Alliance from now on. Since then, as the saying goes, when there is a great reward, there will be a brave man. In order to get the support of the Martial Artists Alliance, many sects and families would go through fire and water to destroy the Dragon Sect. This move, the Martial Artists Alliance was playing with a borrowed knife. The Dragon Sect had already hidden, and no one could find it. Originally, the Heaven and Earth Sect would help the Dragon Sect, but now, Tongzun's sudden appearance had completely disrupted the Heaven and Earth Sect's plan. Yi Dugu could not provoke Tongzun for the sake of the Dragon Sect and Longao. The Heaven and Earth Sect could ignore the Martial Artists Alliance, but they could not ignore Tongzun. The Dragon Sect. Master, the Martial Artists Alliance has already started a large-scale search for us. If this goes on, it will not work. Once the Dragon Sect is found, the consequences will be unimaginable. The two of them were extremely worried as they did not know whether Longao was dead or alive. However, the two of them were very clear that no matter what happened, they had to protect the Dragon Sect. They could not let the Dragon Sect be destroyed. Otherwise, when Longao returned, they would not be able to explain to Longao. She nodded helplessly. How could Longying not know about the Dragon Sect's current situation? She thought for a while. Brother Dugu, with our current situation, I believe that once we move or reveal ourselves, we will be discovered by the Martial Artists Alliance and other forces. Therefore, we can only hide for now. I really did not expect that seventh brother would cause such a ruckus in the Martial Artists Alliance. Not only did he kill the 2 Vice Alliance Masters, he even attracted the attention of the ancestor of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tongzun, a legendary figure in the Sky Martial continent. Dugu Bai was shocked. He did not expect Tongzun to be so powerful. Now that he thought about it, Brother Long was really powerful. Ordinary people would not be able to escape under Tongzun's nose. Taking a deep breath, Dugu Bai asked seriously, Master, what should we do now? Being searched for by the Martial Artists Alliance and other forces, the Dragon Sect could be said to be within reach. Who knew when they would be found? In fact, both Longying and Dugu Bai understood one thing. Once the Dragon Sect was discovered, it would definitely be destroyed. There was no suspense. Currently, the Dragon Sect did not have any experts guarding it. Before Longao left, in order to cause a ruckus in the Martial Artists Alliance, not only did he forcefully increase his strength, He even took away 500 divine dragon corpse slaves. As a result, the dragon sect's strength was greatly reduced. Not to mention the martial artists' alliance, the dragon sect could not even contend against a third-rate force. It would be a lie to say that they were not worried. But what was the use of worrying? After thinking about it, Longying sneered and said, "We'll deal with whatever comes our way. What can the martial artists' alliance do? As long as we hide here, I don't believe that the martial artists' alliance can find us. Brother Dugu, immediately give the order. From now on, no matter who it is, no one is allowed to leave the dragon sect. Those who disobey will not only be expelled from the sect, they will also be killed." Dugubai knew how serious the situation was. He did not dare to hesitate and immediately turned to leave. According to Longying's order, no one was allowed to leave the sect. Only then could they continue to hide and not be discovered by the Martial Artists Alliance and other forces. Seventh brother, I hope that you're all right. Otherwise, I won't be able to give an explanation to the clan. Looking at the empty hall, Longying deeply sighed. Until now, they still didn't know whether Longao was alive or dead. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.